This is where you realize number one, you're either a winner or a loser. Look, I 50x my income when I changed my life. I'm doing better than everyone else I know. No, I'm not even joking.
Hello, welcome everybody. Hi everybody, welcome back. What's up, my people? Oh, Bubbies. Bubba's very upset. He was asleep in Pablo's office and I ran in 1 minute ago and I was like, Bubba, we gotta go to work. I picked him up and I put him on the bed. So he's a little bit grumpy, upset. How's everybody doing? Let me know in the chat how your day is going. Hopefully I don't have food in my teeth. I was eating 5 minutes ago. Okay, excited to be here. Excited to get rich. Aaron says, great timing. Could really use a quick, easy way to get rich tonight. You are in luck. Oh my goodness. I'm actually super excited about today's stream, specifically because it's a bit of a follow-up, if you couldn't tell by the thumbnail, to a video that I put out a couple weeks ago. So, if you missed it, I have linked that video in the description of this live stream. But essentially, a friend of mine sent me a message on Instagram telling me about this new business model that many of these coaches are now following. And it's super fucking predatory, in my opinion. I go over it in depth in that video. But it turns out one of the women who I used as an example in the original deep dive has a whole masterclass discussing what this business model is. So I was like, let's watch it and let's learn how we can also adopt a really predatory business model and get really rich. So perfect timing for all of us. Love it, love it, love it. Another day, another 20 cents. I mean, 20K. So true. I will take this time while I'm doing my 5-minute blabbering intro to let those of you who didn't know that I posted a new video on the weekend, and it is performing horribly. If I'm being completely transparent, it is the worst video I've posted in the last 10 videos. So if you haven't watched it, maybe you could do that after we're done here. Anyway, today we're going to be drinking, same as last week. I went and bought another case of this because it's so freaking good. If you live in Canada, run, don't walk to your local grocery store and buy this. Vanilla cherry sparkling water. It's so freaking delicious. It's like a vanilla cherry Coke, I suppose, but like no sugar. So it's just really good, okay? Let me see. I'll catch up on the comments. Marie says, working on making $700 extra each month the next 8 months. Well, less fun way to say it is that I will rent out my apartment. Honestly, you gotta do what you gotta do, you know? I respect the hustle. Hello, Suzanne. Welcome. Aaron is enjoying a bubbly blackberry in a can tonight. Last night we tried, so sometimes we want to, I don't know if many of you have been here a long time. You've heard the story. Bubba is on antidepressants. Bubba has really severe anxiety. If we want to go do something, we usually leave him with the dog sitter. But we've been training him to be able to stay home on his own up to an hour-ish. So some days we will walk to the nearby corner store to buy ourselves a bubbly drink to practice leaving Bubba alone. Because what else are we going to do? Just walk around the block, whatever. So last night we went on our, ritual walk to the corner store to buy a bubbly drink. And we tried bubbly. I don't know if this was always available in the US, but they just released it in Canada because I've never seen it before. They released a pomegranate blueberry flavor. It's pretty good. Pretty good. So that's what Pablo got, that one. I got a poppy. But the convenience store, we have 2 convenience stores close to our house, and they both have an insanely wide selection of bubbly beverages, and it's always a good time because I get to try something new every day. Now, if you are watching the replay of this video, you should know by now to always skip ahead to the 5-6 minute part because I talk about nothing. And if you're watching live, you just get to enjoy the show. So thank you so much for being here, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Let's go ahead and get into the training. I will stop yippity yapping. And so, like I mentioned, if you're just jumping on, today we're going to be looking at a follow-up to a video that I posted a few weeks ago. That video is linked in the description of this live stream if you haven't seen it. But basically, there is this business model going around the coaching industry where essentially, not to spoil the presentation we're about to watch, essentially you, instead of just like paying a coach money and them coaching you, you pay a coach a bunch of money and then you're obligated to hand over 10% of your business's revenue during the duration of your coaching contract, which is problematic for many reasons, which we can get into again later as she begins to explain it. But I don't like it here. I hate it, actually. And before anyone in the chat goes ahead and says, well, that's what it's like when you get venture capital investment. No, it's not. Because when a VC invests in your company, they're paying you money in exchange for the equity. In this situation, you're paying the coach and then you're also giving the coach 10% of your revenue. Again, we'll get into it a little bit more in depth later, but I did just want to clear that up before we start. I've pulled the chat up on the screen, so hopefully it will start working. But let's go ahead and just jump right into this training and see where it goes. You guys can let me know how the sound levels are. I know I've been having issues with my mic the past couple of weeks, so just let me know.
All right, let me get everyone in and then we will get started. Thank you guys so much for being here. So happy to have y'all. Okay, so process for today that we're going to go through is I am going to give you guys kind of just like an overview, like very quick level set on what is partnership model. We're going to talk like initial start and timeline and how that looked for me. We're going to talk about how I tested it first, benefits, trade-offs.
Monica, I will let her explain it. So if you're just listening, Monica's asking, you have to give her your earnings just because you're in the program. I'll let her explain how it works, and then I'll add a little bit of commentary to clarify once we get there.
Process and logistics, things like that. And then y'all submitted such great questions. So I tried to kind of simplify those and break those down. Obviously, a lot of the same questions came up again and again. So I have those. So I will go through each question. And then if you are here, you can obviously ask questions at the end too. Megan is here. So feel free to put questions in the chat as we go. I probably won't get to them in that moment unless Megan feels like I really need to, and then she'll interrupt me, which is totally fine too.
Okay, this woman is like me. Blah, 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 blabbering. Let's get into the actual talk. So maybe here.
Okay. All right. So first things first, very quick level set. I'm sure a lot of you know this, but we'll just start here is for me, the partnership model in my business looks like $12.50 a month as the base rate, plus 10% of new revenue generated through our work together. So to me, new revenue is defined as new clients or sales that come on post coaching, beginning coaching together. So
Okay, so she's jumping right into it. So the way that this business works, and again, I covered this in that other video. If you haven't seen it, I'll quickly recap. As a client of this particular coach, you are paying her base rate, which I believe she just said was $12.50. I should have wrote it down. Let's just say $1,250 a month plus 10% of any new revenue that your business generates from the date that you sign the contract. So if you are in a, let's say, 6-month contract with this individual, starting, let's say, 2 days ago or whatever, the beginning of June, so yesterday, I pay her $1,250. Any new clients that I sign after June 1st, I am now obligated to pay this woman 10% of that money. Now, again, I'll get into this as we continue on through the presentation. I don't want to spoil it all at the beginning, but the reason why I find this really problematic, one of the key reasons anyway, there are many, is that there's no definitive way to demonstrate that the reason why I signed a new client was because of my work with this individual. Particularly, I'll take my own business as an example for this because that's the experience I can speak from. I'm currently in negotiations with a few different clients who I've never worked with before, but we've been chatting back and forth via email about, deliverables, what they're looking for support with, what my pricing is, blah, 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 blah. So let's just say that I signed up with this woman yesterday. I paid her $1,250. I'm already in negotiation with these people, not as a result of the coaching that I'm doing with her. A week from now, they send me a contract saying they want to work together. What? Now I'm obligated to give her 10% of that money because we just happened to be working together at the same time that this client came in. Further to that, my particular business, I get a lot of inbound work. I don't ever pitch myself to anyone to get contract work. I'm very fortunate that people find me and then they offer, to work together. So work that I was already going to get through inbound curiosity, inbound emails, am I supposed to be giving her 10% of that just because we happen to be working together, even though these people were going to reach out to me anyway? I don't know. There just seems to be a lot of questions that I have personally about how this model is ethical. And further to that, how exactly we're able to kind of track, which clients came as the result of our coaching and which clients were already going to come my way just as a result of being a business owner. So I have many, many questions, and maybe she's going to get into it. I doubt it, but maybe she is. We'll give her the benefit of the doubt. Just catching up on the comments here. Hello, Gwen. So nice to see you. Gwen says, looking forward to today's lesson for how to get rich with a non-sustainable, broken business model. That's the attitude we need around here. Zip says, I could see a client choosing to give the coach a cut instead of paying up front, but don't see how giving the coach payments on both ends could be in the client's best interest. That's exactly my sentiment as well. Okay, if you want to hire a coach, go for it. Personally, not for me, but I understand for some people, they really love the environment of having a coach, having that support system in being able to build their business. You want to pay your coach monthly? Go ahead. Now, let's just say coach approaches you and offers the idea, instead of you paying me a flat monthly fee, how about from the time that we start working together, you just pay me a percentage of your revenue during the duration of our program, because if I'm effective in my coaching, I should be able to help you grow your revenue, right? Sure, you want to pay the coach an equitable amount to the amount that they helped you grow. If I hire a coach and they help me build my business $50,000, why wouldn't I pay them $5,000, 10% of that revenue? Again, how do we track that? How do we know what came from the coaching, what didn't? It's very, very sort of ambiguous in my opinion. I think that's fine if you want to opt for a revenue share model, but to double dip and essentially be like, you are required to pay me this much plus, something about it just seems predatory to me. I don't know. I don't like it.
Very quick example of that would be if someone has a 6-month mastermind and they sign on with me and they're 3 months into it, I am not entitled to the rest of those 3 months of payments. Now,
there you go. Monica, that answers your question. Monica asked, what if you already have clients before you got the coach? You only owe her money for new clients that come in after they start working together.
If we launch that mastermind again and sell it, that part would be on me or would be part of the revenue share because that's work we're doing together. So does that, just a very quick level set, we'll get into more specific details on that in a little bit, but just kind of wanted to use that as one small example, but new revenue. Now, $1,250 base rate, 10% of new revenue is how I choose to do that.
Again, that kind of seems sketchy though. If I'm re-signing existing clients just because the contract... Wait. Okay, so I just need to verbalize this so that I understand. So she initially said, if you're already in, I have a client that I'm working with for 6 months. We're on month 3. She's not entitled to month 4, 5, and 6 revenue. However, if I relaunch that offer and that same client signs on again for 6 months, I now owe her 10% of that revenue. To me, that doesn't make sense because she wasn't the one that was there, boots on the ground, helping me bring that client into my audience. Like many of you that follow me on Instagram specifically, probably by this point, Harrison, I'm looking at you, know that I have a long-term partnership with Sage Accounting. That's the accounting software I've used in my business for like 3 to 4 years now. We have a deal where basically every month, every other month, I do a sponsored post for them. If I hired this coach and then she gets 10% of all my brand deals now just because she happens to be there when Sage Accounting offers me another contract every single month. Like, that doesn't make any sense. I did the work. I built that relationship. I got them as a recurring client. But now you're telling me that I owe you money for that work, even though like, oh, we're working together now. We're doing that work together. Like, no, I brought that client into my bubble on my own terms. You didn't help me do that. Like, I already hate it for so many reasons, and that's just another one that doesn't make any sense to me. Alexis is celebrating 3 months of membership and says, this lady is not getting my money. I want to be rich people. Don't share. That's the attitude we need around here.
You can buy status by just like spending money to be around these people and then just being a cool person.
Totally agree. Why share your revenue when you could keep it all for yourself and be rich? Just saying.
So just know that that's not like the way to do it. That's just the way I've done it. So you might do $500 base rate and 25% revenue, or you might do $3,000 base rate and 5% revenue. Like it, you get to do whatever feels good for you. So just wanting to name that. This is just what happens to be what I've done and what I've chosen. And I will go into a little bit more detail on why that's what I've chosen. But really, again, just wanting to level set that you get to pick, like this is just about partnership in terms of revenue percentage, right? What I really view this as that I think is a super helpful frame for people to think about it through is the base rate is basically someone just paying for my time and my team's time. So the $1,250 is like, I'm showing up for those 3 calls a month for unlimited Basecamp support. Megan, my team are showing up and doing all the things they need to do to support that process and make that happen. The $1,250 covers that. The percentage is then paying for your results, basically. So I feel like people really like that frame because it makes sense you're kind of showing up for the exchange. Like obviously there is just a fee associated with someone giving their time and the value of that. But the fact that like that's low so that most of the fee is based on results, I think also feels exciting to people. So that's sort of how I think about it. I think there's probably like a very big case to be made for the fact that like, yes, I could value my time more highly than that, but that has always felt good to me. And it's felt like a reasonable exchange of like, hey, like to show up, like we need to cover this base just in terms of like, me not losing money on this or my team or any of those things.
Of course it feels good because you're making money. Like what? Sorry. Let me celebrate these members. Marie is celebrating 17 months of membership. Time flies for sure. Absolutely. I agree. And I just want it to be clear that this membership is not a pyramid.
It's not a pyramid scheme. It's not even a scheme per se.
It's not even a scheme per se. It's more of a cult, really. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being a member. Amy says, celebrating 3 months of membership. Anytime someone tells you money doesn't buy happiness, tell them that's only what poor people say. Financial freedom equals happiness. And to that, I just want to say this one thing.
Raise your hand if you want to get rich.
Raise your hand if you want to get rich, and if you do, you are in the right place. Now, since we're paused, I do want to address this comment here from Marie. It says, I can see it working in a limited circumstance where I help you set up this program or service, and for this limited time, I will pay you a percentage. But that means the coach actually makes a contribution. I could agree with this. Again, I would be more in favor if it was just like the commission sort of base model where they're going to get, 10, 20, 30% of my revenue. I think in consulting, you see this a lot. Like you hire a consultant to help you with a very specific project to launch a very specific thing. And there are measurable KPIs, key performance indicators that you're using to make sure that the results you're getting are a direct work of the consultant's advice, right? When you're framing this whole thing where it's like, this coach now has 10% of your total business revenue, to me, I don't think there is a clear way that you could track specifically what came as a result of the coaching and what was just like already going to happen or a result of the work that you'd already done before you started working together. Like there's just so many questions for me in this specific kind of setup. Just catching up on the comments. Yeah, this one here says Delulu, they think they are Shark Tank or Dragon's Den entrepreneurs now. But the thing to me is like, they want to frame it as if it's like a venture capital investment, but it's not. Like in venture capital, this coach would be paying the client to then get that 10%. And that would be 10% equity. It wouldn't even be 10% of the revenue. Like if I'm the Dragon's Den investor and you come to me as the client, I would give you the $1,250 a month. You would use that money to scale your business, presumably, of which I would get 10% of the value of the business, not of your revenue. Then 5, 10, however many years from now, you go and sell the business at a specific valuation. I get 10% of that. It's like they're taking the idea of venture capital, but they don't really understand it. And they're manipulating it to be more favorable for them immediately, which like, it's just so fucking frustrating. 100%. The membership is not a pyramid scheme. It's a triangular shaped cult. Let's put that on a sticker. Monica celebrates 9 months of membership and says, woohoo, here to get rich.
Now you are one of us. One of us. One of us.
Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate each and every one of you so much. Three Flamingo says, I'm tempted, but I'm not going to do it. I'm saving it for the unicorn. Your unicorn day is coming soon, I'm sure. Yeah, exactly. Suzanne, I totally agree. Suzanne says, I don't like the total business revenue part. What about just the offer you're working on with the coach? Much to Marie's point as well. I think that is much more measurable and makes a lot more sense. If I'm thinking like I'm going to launch a new, keyword new, a new offer that didn't exist before and I'm hiring you to help me create it. You know, we're going to ideate like what the structure is going to be. You're going to coach me through how I plan on launching it. That is so much easier to measure than you just saying, well, if you relaunch your mastermind 3 months from now, I now get a cut of the revenue. Like, sorry, what? How are people not asking these questions when they go to hire this person? I don't understand. Yeah, that's the other piece I'm not sure, and maybe she'll get into this. Monica's asking, how can she tell if her clients are lying or not when it comes to the 10%? Like, do you now have to give your coach like screenshots of your Stripe dashboard, your bank account? Like, how are we verifying that I'm actually giving you 10%? And yes, I also would love to see the contracts for sure. Benjamin is back. Welcome to the live stream. Happy to have you here. Congratulations on making it. Yes, very true. Harrison says what they do with venture capital is the same thing they do with quantum physics and why woo-woo delulu visualization will make you rich through the ether. I actually opened an email today I was in my Jane Doe email account where I have 5,000 unopened emails. Anyway, I was looking for this content and I came across an email from Manifestation Babe and I immediately copied and pasted it to Pablo because I was like, fuck, these people are just, they don't know what they're saying. Anyway, she sent an email talking about the observer effect, and I'll just read like briefly what it says. It says, this principle basically says that the very act of observing something changes the outcome of what's being observed. In other words, your attention isn't passive, it's creative. When scientists observe particles during quantum experiments, those particles behave differently simply because they were being watched, blah, 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 blah. Then she spins it as to like, this is proof that you can change your reality just by watching what happens. It's like, fuck, can we stop taking things that we are not educated in and acting like we are experts in it? Because lady, you don't even know what you're saying. Stop charging people thousands of dollars for this information. Okay, I got sidetracked. Let's get back into the training.
And they're being a pay for result after that. I'm just seeing one little question pop up that I'll just answer now, but sorry, I'm like not really looking at them, but that one just popped up, which is there a cap? And the answer is yes. We cap at $20,000 a month. So I can talk more about that later too, but that's part of the model as well. So that is sort of just the gist very quickly there. All right, so let's just talk timeline. I feel like a lot of people were interested in like, what did this look like when you rolled it out? Like, what did this look like to start it? And so I want to, be transparent and share as much as I can there. I've been doing this for 6 years now. I started it in 2016. So initially the way I started was with 20% of revenue and no base rate, 20% of new revenue and no base rate, which was a cool test at the time, right? So what I did, because there was no base rate, I felt like, well, gosh, I have to like know someone's invested in this or bought into this in some way other than them putting money toward it. Because obviously like you do show up differently when you're putting money towards something. And so we did a 3-part process where someone had to submit an application, then they had to submit a business plan, and then they had to do a video. And so it was a 3-part process, and I ended up picking, I can't even remember the exact number, I think 2 or 3 people initially out of that segment to do the 20% no base rate with. And I loved it, like loved it. I think 2 of the 3 people ended up paying me more than they would have paid me if they even just hired me as a coach. And I was like, wow, this is like, we're really on to something here, because like it felt great to them. It was super exciting.
I started seeing dollar signs. I started realizing how rich I could get by exploiting people. And I thought, we're really on to something here. Let's go.
It felt great to me. I actually ended up making even more money. So it was a really cool dynamic. And I ended up running that process, the 3 steps multiple times and taking a few clients each time while my business was just regular payment for coaching. So I was balancing both at the same time. And I just kept seeing really good results come from it. I really kept seeing like, gosh, like this is working out really well for me, and the fact that I'm making more money off of this. But I also am seeing how clients just love the feeling of that. Like it truly felt like there was a bit of a difference in how clients were showing up and how I was able to make them feel like I was their partner in a different way. Like I wasn't supporting them in any way that was actually different than how I was supporting my clients that were just paying a regular fee. But there definitely was a different energy about that I think they really enjoyed and that I really enjoyed as well. So that's when I was like, okay, I think it really makes sense to move my whole business model to this, right? I did that in 2018. So I just think it's important to know I tested it for like a 1.5 or 2 years. I can't remember. It was a 1.5 or 2 years. I can't remember exactly which, before I moved my whole business model to that. So we'll talk about testing a little bit more, but just like feels like it's really important to make note of that. And I think what happened here that was helpful is that a lot of my audience came on that journey with me. So they saw me doing this, 3-part application process. They saw me picking people. They heard me talking about this. They heard the 20% no base rate thing. So there was like a lot of buy-in from them, not just in terms of like, oh, I would do that, but more in terms of like, oh, I get why she's doing that. This is interesting. So it was really helpful to introduce to my audience on that broader scale, because they had been hearing about it for a 1.5 or 2 years. So just think that it's important to say that, helping them go along on the journey with you and understand why you're making that change or why you're charging in that way is really useful, because it helps them get bought in along the.
I'm curious who this masterclass is for. I'm a little bit unclear. So at first I thought it was going to be for like her getting prospective clients who want to like, join her coaching under the partnership model. But now I'm getting the impression that it's for other coaches that want to start using this model. What do we think? Who is the I'm surprised she didn't do this webinar is for you if you have 2 feet and a heartbeat, and it isn't for you if you're a poor broke loser. She didn't do that at the beginning, so I'm not really sure who the target market is here. You know what? Harrison, I completely forgot. Harrison's wondering if I built my sock puppets yet. I got to add that to my to-do list. Make sock puppets. If you weren't here a couple weeks ago on stream, I was mockingly pretending to be these people, and we need to bring it to life. I'll get to it soon. Maybe in all of my videos, when I use the high pitch like squirrel voice, when I'm making fun of these people, I can just use the sock puppet instead. So stay tuned.
Journey, as opposed to just feeling like a switch flipped. Like, even if a switch did just flip, still bring them along on the story. Tell them why this choice. Like, that is such a key element, I think, is that it just felt like there was a build to them getting bought in and they understood the story and narrative behind it. Which brings me to kind of my next point that I really want to make here.
Okay, these weird like, I don't know, I'm assuming this was edited in post, but it's like, it's so weird how it just goes, because she has a little bit of background noise with the mic she's using. I'm assuming she's just using like her laptop microphone. It goes like dead silent. Pause. Like, why not do a voiceover or something? I don't know. It's just weird.
So important is, if you're here and you're thinking about this, please know you can test it first. I feel like sometimes in our brains, it can feel so black or white. Like, it's either like I have a partnership model business or I don't. That does not have to be the case, y'all. It really doesn't. Like, you get to test, you get to see what feels best to you here. If you want to do this with 2 clients and have 2 spots in your business that are partnership spots, and the rest is regular pay or whatever, like, that's an option. I would really make sure that it feels good to you, that you enjoy the dynamic of it, which we'll talk about more of that later, that it feels good to you, that you enjoy the dynamic of it, and that like you have a chance to get people bought into the process along the way. Now, could you switch your whole business model to it tomorrow? 100%, absolutely, zero problem with that. But bring them on the journey and tell them why. But also know that you can give yourself the option to test this first. Like, also what you could do is like, maybe you test this with like just one-on-one clients, but your groups and masterminds stay regular pay. Like, there's a lot of different iterations of how this can come into your business. But for me, it was so important to test first because it's how I felt really, really confident when I went to do it. It didn't feel like I was making a gamble. It felt like I knew exactly what I was getting into. It felt like I knew what I liked, what I didn't. I knew that it was working. Like, felt a significant amount of certainty. And I think that energy translated to my audience very well. And I think had I not felt that much certainty, it would have felt a lot harder for them to get bought in, if that makes sense, right? Because that energy translates. So whatever you would need to feel that level of certainty, if that's testing it first, if it's testing it in certain ways, that would be my recommendation. Like, know that you have the space to do that. Don't feel like it's all or nothing, because that's sort of the beauty of this model, is that
Three Flamingo says, I don't think she's top of the triangle. I think she's downline pleb. Actually, this woman falls somewhere in the middle. If anyone's familiar with Sabrina Phillips, who is like she was like mega girl boss back in probably 2018, 2019. She was featured in like all of these publications, you know, this 23-year-old millionaire, blah, 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 blah. She's actually under this woman. So this woman has like a fairly small following, but she's worked with a lot of bigger named coaches. If you go to her website and look at the testimonials, it's actually quite surprising. I think it's like the same shit we see with Amanda Francis. They literally just don't give a fuck. If someone is willing to pay them money, they give no cares about the quality of the presentations they do. They film on their laptop webcam and call it a day because they're still making money. So why even bother trying?
it's not all or nothing. All right. So another thing that I will say here too is I have had clients fully move their business model to this without a test first. However, what I will say is they also knew they wanted it because they had been experiencing this model as a client for years. So they were still very familiar with the dynamic and what that felt like. And so, you know, maybe that's where you're at. Maybe you've had somebody that you've actually done this model with, or maybe you're one of my clients and you're like, oh yeah, I do know what that feels like. And I do like that dynamic and I do understand it. It feels really good. Well, that might be your test. Like, that's okay if that's your test. And like, this might be your way of bringing your people along with it, is like, share that piece of it, share how you've been supported in that way. And that has felt really good for you. And you want to be able to pass that on to them. So there are different ways to test. Like, it might be testing with your audience. It might be having been in it yourself and really enjoyed it. So just kind of want to make note of that as well. But before I move on, anything there, Megan, that feels important to answer in terms of like initial start or any of that? Oh, looks like Megan's answering the questions. Yeah, Megan is.
Okay. Do you want to go into the cap on the percentage, or do you want to go into that later?
Nope, that's great. I can share about that. Thank you. Yeah. So the reason we decided to do a cap on the percentage, just to be transparent, because I feel like some people probably want to know this, literally nobody asked me for this. No client was like, hey, I would like to cap this. Hey, this doesn't feel good to me. Absolutely nobody asked me.
But I am so nice and so generous that I just decided, even though no one's asking for this, I will stop at 20,000 because, like, honestly, the payments on my G-Wagon are only like $5,000 a month. So as long as I have like an extra 15K that I can do whatever I want with, I don't need your extra money. So $20,000 is good with me. And I'm such a nice, good, kind, generous person that I will let them keep any extra money they make over that. So it's because I'm just so amazing. That's why I decided it.
For that. So I just want to share that because I think sometimes getting into something like this, it can be like, oh my God, that would feel terrible if a client asked me that. That is not the situation that occurred at all. But for me, I was getting close to that amount with some of my clients. And it started to feel like, gosh, at this point, let's say we're getting close to the 20K mark, right? At this point, it feels like I would personally want to rework my role or dynamic in this client's business at that level, right? So if it's 20,000, technically it's 21,000, $250. So $21,250 a month. It feels like I would really want to rework the dynamic in which I was contributing. I feel like in our space, this would be like so easy for someone to be like, so you have a money mindset issue of not earning more than 20K a month. But for me, like, I just believe in like, what's the exchange? What's the value? And does that make sense? And at that point, I was like, I think the exchange would have to change for this to feel even, for this value to feel like it still continues to be there. And so for me personally, 20K was just that mark. Someone may want more or less, depending on what feels good to them or what they feel like is, energetic exchange or value alignment in their business. But this was just a personal thing for me. Like, as we were getting to that amount, and I was sitting with like, okay, like from this business, I'm collecting this amount per month. Like, I just found my line and was like, this just makes it feel different. And I did explore with myself, like, okay, would I want to change the dynamic I have in that client's business and feel good about making even more there? And I didn't. Like, I really like the model I have. I really like how I have it set up. I really like the level of involvement I have. And I just decided, like,
I would rather only do one coaching call a month than actually have to work for the money. Like, if they want to pay me $30,000, I would have to probably work like twice a week, and I don't really want to do that. So I am instead just gonna take 20,000 and just work once a week. I actually don't know what she said, how frequent the calls are. I'm just being a sarcastic little snark, okay, for those of you that don't catch my drift.
Rather cap it than change that. And so that's where I landed. So it does not always have to be a money mindset issue. It can be just like, what do I feel like the value and value exchange is here? And how can I make that feel good? And that's where I landed. All right. So next thing I want to take you guys through is benefits. It feels really important to me that you guys walk away from this understanding what were some.
Oh, William, no, she's making 20K, which means the business is making 200K a month. She gets 10% of their monthly revenue, up to $20,000. So you can answer your own question with that information.
Some of the like big benefits to this model, but what are some of the trade-offs to this model as well?
Can I interrupt you just for a sec?
Oh my God,
can
please.
You explain more about what do you mean when you say change the dynamic in terms of the
So for me, change the dynamic might mean like, do I need to go to their team meetings now? Like, do I need to be an even more involved part? Do we maybe have even more than 3 calls a month? Do I start getting involved with like some team stuff? Am I coming to more of the like higher level meetings? Am I like, those are just some examples, but it was like, I felt like to go past that amount, my involvement would need to go past that amount.
Because I realized that once I started making $1,250 plus 20K in revenue per month, only having to coach them for 1 hour 3 times a month, I realized that like maybe this is a scam, and maybe if I wanted to make more than $21,000 a month, I would have to, I don't know, like admit that I'm scamming people. And then that would mean that I would actually have to do work in order to make the money. So I was like, you know what? $21,000 a month is where I draw the line. I think 3 hours of work for $21,000 seems reasonable. So I'm just gonna like not do that because I do not dream of labor. I do not dream of having to actually work to make money. So having to make more money and then work more, not for me. Not for me. Thumbs down. Do not subscribe. I hate that idea.
And so again, that was something I thought about and explored. And I thought of like different ways that could be. Like maybe I could go to a team meeting. Maybe I would get more involved with that. Maybe like their COO could reach out to me if they had a specific question. But ultimately, that just felt like it was just muddying the waters a little bit more than I wanted to, even though some dynamics of that would be fun. I certainly have had meetings with clients and their team, but it's more like as it relates to a session, not like I'm just continually like coming to team meetings, et cetera. So that was sort of where I decided like, yes, I could be more involved, but that didn't really feel like the way I wanted to structure it. Yeah. Okay, cool. All right, so benefits. For me, like the biggest benefit of this model by far is the like you win when your client wins dynamic, right? Like you make money when your client gets results. Like I feel like that is just the juiciest for me and for them. Like far and above that is what I love most about this model is it just feels so good on both sides. Like it feels like we are in this together. We are truly partners. I make money when they make money. There's this book I read a while ago called Happy Money. Gosh, I can't remember who wrote it. I'll have to look and share with y'all, but it's called Happy Money. And it's basically just this whole philosophy of like receiving money that feels happy. And I read that and was just like, oh my God, this is my business model. Like I receive happy money. Like that's it. Because it feels like when it's coming with like a lot of like wins and excitement attached to it. And it feels like something we're creating together. And so, yeah, it just feels like the happy money business almost. And it's just like the coolest dynamic. So getting to play in that every day is such a benefit and it feels so good. It also feels really sustainable. Like that's something that I also think is a huge benefit is my clients just stay with me for a really long time. Most of my clients have been with me for years at this point because they know I'm there to like ride the waves with them, right? Like I know that like nobody in the online space wants to admit this, but a lot of times business does look like this, no matter how much we want to pretend it doesn't. And having a coach that you can be in all of that with is so valuable. Like one of my clients recently made quite a big change to her business model. And so there's going to be like a couple months that are a huge dip compared to what she's used to making. And like, I'm in that with her, right? Like she gets to pay me a lot less for those few months. And like, that is okay. But it's also so grounding to them, because it's like, they don't feel like, well, I can't really make this change in my business because like I'm on the hook for X amount or whatever, right? It feels like I always have a lot of space to iterate and play and go in different directions because I have a coach and an agreement that supports me in moving through that. Right.
I'm so lost. Erin, I'm right there with you. Erin says, I'm so confused by the format of this masterclass. I don't know why she's calling it a masterclass. Like in our experience here on this channel, a masterclass is usually like a webinar where there's a slide deck and you're teaching me something and then you're going to pitch me something at the end. That's why I'm still unclear who the target audience is for this. Like, is this coaches who want to adopt this coaching model, or is this clients that she wants to bring into her own coaching business? It's still unclear to me because she's not really teaching me anything specific. She's just blabbering about how it works. Maybe. Are they going for podcast interview style? Also, I just caught up on the last 15 minutes, so I might have missed some. No, the other girl is her assistant who's like manning the live chat, I guess, while this presentation is going. So she's just kind of asking questions based on what the people in the chat are asking. But again, like it doesn't really feel like there's a flow or a purpose. It's giving Danielle Ryan YouTube live stream vibes, but I thought it was supposed to be educational, so I'm confused. Harrison sent a $2 super chat and said, actual happy money. You know what? I think that is so, so true. And to that I say this.
You have cantankerous things in your life happen.
When you have cantankerous things in your life happen, why not celebrate with happy money?
And I want nothing from you. It's free. F-R-E-E.
It's free. F-R-E-E. For me. Not for you. For you, it costs $1.99. So thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Three Flamingo says, something is way off. The background is not her actual home. It's stock. So if she's so successful, why is she giving very fake and desperate vibes? I don't think, actually, that this is a fake background. Because I watched some of her other content. And the little like flower thing here changes. So I think this is actually part of her house. I'm just confused. Like, is she in her kitchen? Because to me, it kind of looks like she's sitting at like the island of a kitchen with her cabinets behind her. Because that doesn't really give like an office kind of cabinet vibe. So I'm more confused about like, where are you filming this? And why don't you have an office? Anyway, I digress. Let's continue.
I mean, there's like a million examples of that, but I think it really does create a lot of long-term sustainability with your clients and your partnerships.
Yes. Sorry, pausing again just to address Aaron's comment here. Don't forget to give Bubba 20 cents of the $2. Bubba is actually my life coach and he gets 10% of all of my revenue. Honestly, he kind of does between vet bills and food and all of that. You're not far off, okay? Let me just say that.
Because they know that like you can ride the waves with them, and it doesn't feel like when they're committing, they're like, okay, I'm committing this certain amount of money, but like, what if I, whatever, get pregnant in the next X amount of months and have to pull back and like that thought process just isn't really there, right? Because if they like get pregnant and have to pull back, then like they just pay less. Like there's just such a cool, like you've got my back vibe with it. And I think it really helps clients stay in it for the long haul and see the value in that. And also just keep resigning because it's just a sustainable amount. I'll talk later about why 10%, but I think a lot of times what happens in our space is someone will, stretch in a really big way to pay for like a really expensive program, but they're not going to re-sign with that person because they're like, that was such a stretch. And it was like a one and done thing for me like that. I can't sustain that level of investment long-term. Right. And that's just, it's not what the partnership model is. There's no like level of investment that you have to sustain. It's literally just 10% of whatever you're creating. Right. So really, really valuable there. Obviously another benefit that's huge is it's just scalable in an alternative way. I'm sure many of you have heard me talk about this part of my story before, but I just love one-on-one. I've tried other things. I've tried groups. Like my favorite dynamic far and above is one-on-one. Even when I was a therapist, like
Marie, so true. Marie says, offices, when you only work a couple hours a week, it's just so easy to make money from your kitchen. Silly me. That would explain the bad audio too, because kitchens have very hard surfaces. So there's lots of sound bouncing off everything.
Most therapists would like love to do like the group sessions and stuff like that. And I just like could do those. They weren't my fave. And I just loved one-on-one in that thing too. So it's just aligned to my personality. And I was just at a point where I was sort of like, okay, maybe I'll just never have a scalable business. Like maybe I'll just make $250K for the foreseeable future doing shit I love. I'm cool with that, rock on. And then this idea came to me. And what's been so cool is I've been able to scale my business to, make 7 figures in a year doing the thing I love. So it was like, I was willing to just, say, okay, great. I'm just going to make 250 and do the thing I love. But what's been so cool about this is it's helped me, 4 times that and be scalable while getting to do the thing I love. So especially if you're someone who likes going deep with people, who likes more intimate partnership in that way, this can be a really great alternative to like all the noise we hear of like the only way to scale is like a group or a mastermind or whatever. Those are great if you love them. A lot of my clients thrive in that. It's just not for everyone. So just like worth noting there.
Yeah, so rather than having a group program where you're getting multiple people to pay you thousands of dollars, just find like 1 or 2 suckers that are willing to give you 10% of their total business's revenue, because then you can work just 3 hours a month and make $20,000. So like, duh, why waste my time in a group program when I could just scam less people and make more money? It's easy.
Yeah, I think, you know, another thing that I've been talking about quite a bit recently that I just want to mention here in terms of benefits is I think as our industry shifts more, it's really a lot more of a buyer's market than a seller's market right now. That's how I've been kind of explaining it. But what I mean by that is it felt like for so long in the coaching world, like you could just sell anything at like crazy high prices and people were just like, oh, okay, I guess I'm supposed to pay that. Right? Like it was such a seller's market. And I feel like the industry is really starting to take a shift into more of a buyer's market where like the buyer does get to be discerning and they do want to make sure it feels good and delivers value and that.
The buyer gets to be discerning. As in what? Formerly they weren't able to because you were too busy manipulating them into thinking that they needed whatever it was you're selling. And now you actually have to deliver something of value. Ah, gasp! What a weird concept. Imagine having to actually do your fucking job to make money. I could never actually do my job to make money when I could instead just scam people. What a shame I can no longer get rich from scamming. Oh, I feel so sorry for you.
I was exhausted being a loser. Now I'm exhausted being a winner.
I bet you're exhausted. Must be tough.
At a price point that serves them and I think this is just the perfect business model for, you know, a buyer's market because you're literally basically saying like, here, pay for my time that it's going to take in my team to like show up and support you. And then like everything else is pay based on your results. Like that is just a no-brainer for people. And I think that it's the kind of business model that can survive changes in the industry and changes in the economy because it's not just dependent on people being in a space where they really, really believe they can stretch into, you know, like crazy high rates or whatever. And it's also really able to ride out different times like in the industry and the economy with people. So I think that's a huge benefit is it just feels so sustainable to me. And it feels like it kind of, you know, can span across different times when things are booming, you're booming in this. When, you know, maybe clients aren't booming or things are struggling, like you're still sustainable. So just really have had such a beautiful experience doing this for the last 6 years and seeing how many iterations of our industry and the economy and COVID and all the things that it has ridden through. And I think that's a huge benefit. You know, I think that so many fads come and go in our industry, like, you know, masterminds are really in and then they're not. And like courses are the thing. And then everyone hates courses. And it's just like, there's so much, you know, like cool thing, not cool thing. And I feel like at the end of the day, most people just do love and desire a one-on-one partnership or a deep partnership. And that really does ride through those times. So that is another benefit. I think that, you know, obviously last benefit is you can make a great amount of money doing it. And the cool thing is the potential is always there. So what I find to be really neat is that I'm never like, I really don't ever think like, oh, I made X sale or something like that, right? At any month, any moment, like so much potential exists. Like if you have 20 clients and like any month, any moment, like someone's blowing up, something's happening, like there's just so much potentiality at play all the time. And it's so exciting on that front. So
Is that a word? Oh my God. Why do all these coaches make up their own potentiality? Potentiality. Isn't it just potential? There's so much potential. Potentiality. Someone. I need a fact checker in the comments to tell me if that's a word because I vote no. No, it's not.
So many benefits. I will stop because I could go on and on about those for a long time, but we will move on to trade-offs. Quick check-in, Megan, anything there on benefits?
I think a lot of the questions we'll circle back to at the end because they kind of overlap. So I'll answer a couple more in the chat too. But
thank you. Yes, I probably should have said this. I'm sure most people know this, but Megan is my COO who has been with us through this entire process and longer. She was with me before we even started the partnership model. So she is just as knowledgeable to answer most of your questions in this. So I appreciate you doing that in the chat, Megan. All right, so trade-offs. I think that when people hear about this business model, it's easy to just be like, oh, that's easy. That's awesome. And like, it is easy and awesome in many ways. And it is, in my opinion, by far the most surrendered business model that you could pick. And what I mean by that is your results are literally not dependent on you, right? Like all of my results are dependent on my clients' results.
Did you? Oh, this woman keeps telling on herself. Oh my, this is crazy. First she's saying, we used to be able to just sell nonsense and make money. We didn't even have to sell anything of value and people would pay for it. Now she's saying, I make money by doing nothing. I make money as a result of my client. She just said that. I'm going to roll back the tape. We're going to listen to it again.
All right, so trade-offs. I think that when people hear about this business model, it's easy to just be like, oh, that's easy. That's awesome. And like, it is easy and awesome in many ways. And it is, in my opinion, by far the most surrendered business model that you could pick. And what I mean by that is your results are literally not dependent on you.
Your results are not dependent on you. Then why the hell am I paying you money? If my results are not dependent on you as my coach, please explain why I am responsible for not only paying you $1,250 a month, but also 10% of my business's newly generated revenue, some of which you had no role in playing because they're offers that I already had in existence before I even started working with you. What am I paying you for when you are openly admitting right here publicly that you don't have to do anything and it's the result of your clients? I'm sorry, but I hope that every person who gives this woman money sits down and watches those 10 seconds, because this is absolutely insane to me that she would say that out loud and just be like, it's all a result of my clients. I don't have to do anything. Yeah, she did say that out loud twice.
Right? Like all of my results are dependent on my clients' results. So there is just an extreme level of surrender that comes with that, right? I'm never really in a position where I'm like, okay, I really wanted to hit like 80K this month. So like, what else do I need to like put out or sell to get there? I mean, obviously I could sell something else if I wanted to. It's not like I'm like not allowed to sell, but like that's just not how most of my money is coming in, right? So like, let's say, I want a big month in March. Like, who knows? Like, are a lot of people launching? Are people not launching? Are some of my clients on vacation? Like,
I'm guessing her clients aren't watching this, because if I was paying this woman money and I heard her say that, I would be canceling that contract so quickly. Oh my God.
it just depends. So it's really a business model where you have to get quite comfortable surrendering to some of the unknown of that. You have to get quite comfortable of not being able to project your revenue super consistently. And I think that for me, that has been a very, very, very helpful exercise. I am what I call a recovering control freak. And I say recovering in quotations because like, depends on the day, but for my control freak tendencies, having to surrender into this over and over again has been like an absolutely magnificent journey and learning for me. And it has felt like such a personal development gift to myself as much as it is a great business model. It has for sure challenged me in all the right ways. But yeah, like you just have to like lean in a lot. I remember one of my clients coming to me and saying like she had a 7-figure business, and she came to me and said, listen, I really need to pull back for XYZ personal reason. Like, here's what I'm thinking. What do you think? And I said, I think you absolutely need to pull back. I think here's what we need to do, blah, blah. And we got to the end of the call and she cried at the end of the call. And she was like, I just cannot believe you like sat with me through that and supported me in that and told me to pull back, because calculation wise, I know that means several $1,000s less for you each month. I was like, oh my God, that didn't even occur to me. Like that feels so separate in my brain, but you have to work very hard for that to feel really separate in your brain where you're.
I feel like that's a lie. If I'm a coach and I'm, this is the business model I have and all my clients are paying me 10% of their revenue, and every month, let's just say I'm making $50,000 from Sarah, Jenny, and Stephanie because they're all sending me this money. And then all of a sudden, Stephanie has to take a break and she can only pay me my base rate of $1,250 and she doesn't have any money to give me. My $50,000 a month revenue drops to $30,000. How am I going to pay my G-Wagon? Oh my God. I don't believe the fact that she's like, I didn't even notice that you were paying me thousands of dollars less every month. I call bullshit on that comment.
You're not like hearing that from a client and then immediately being like, oh, okay, that means $5,000 less. But like, there is some massive work that has to come into that. And I just always like to be transparent about that, because I feel like if not, you get into it and you're like, wow, this is a mind fuck. But if you go into it with that intention of like, this is my ability to surrender more deeply, this is my ability to trust more deeply, this is my ability to, you know, play the long game more fully, like that, there is magic in that. But yeah, it's a whole thing. And, you know, being able to separate yourself from that, or separate your coaching from your own desires, is really an interesting dynamic there, right? So it's like, you know, say my client's like, oh, should I launch in March or April? And I'm like, I would love if you had a big launch in March. Like, I can't think like that, right? It's like whenever it makes sense for you and your business, let's do that. So you just have to really be able to almost like completely leave all of your stuff at the door on a level that you really wouldn't have to think about in just like a normal exchange kind of way. You have to really be able to be like, this is 100% about them. And then I have like a lot of trust on the back end that it'll work out. But like, there's literally nothing you can do about it. I mean, I guess the thing you could do about it is like manipulate the clients or timeline, but that would be so toxic. Two, that would never even really work anyway. Like, this works because you're surrendered to it. So just a note on that being more intense than it seems sometimes. It can also be a mindfuck in a lot of ways, because results are so front and center. Like, obviously in a coaching dynamic like that, you know, they're coming to you for results, and I think results are always front and center, but I know no other coaching dynamic where they're as front and center as they are in the partnership model. I know lots of coaches who like mostly know what their clients are making, or like have an idea of what they might have made that month, or like kind of know, but like most coaches like do not know month over month what has this client made, right? Like, for any client, I can go look back and see every single month for the last 3 years what they've made. Like, I just know those numbers intimately. My clients are always so surprised that I can remember things like that. Like, I'll be like, oh, well, the month you launched X, didn't you make X? And they're like, how do you remember that? But it's like, because we're sharing that all the time, like, results are very present. And
Obviously, if your income is dependent on your client's income, no shit that you would know how much money your clients are making. Like, why are we acting like this is? I'm such an amazing coach because I actually pay attention to how much money my clients make. Mind you, my entire income is dependent on how much money they're making. So, like, obviously I have to track that so that I can make sure I'm getting paid. But besides that, I'm just like so incredible for actually caring about how much money they make. Honey, you care about how much money they make because your livelihood is dependent on the fact that they make money. Let's be so fucking for real for a second. Thank you.
And so I say that as a trade-off, because I think, again, you have to do a lot of personal work to kind of be okay with that as a coach, like, and not take that to be this like super personal thing, or not get obsessive about the results. You know, where every month you're like, I'm supposed to make sure they're making more every single month, no matter what, or like to feel intensity when it's time for everyone to report. Like, you really have to be able to self-manage and create good boundaries and healthy dynamics where it feels super good and safe to share numbers, but there's not a lot of meaning behind like, oh, this means I'm a bad coach, this means I'm a good coach, this, like, you have to separate all of that shit out in a way that you just don't always with regular coaching, where you like kind of know the results, but not in such a, you know, like stark in your face specific way. So just like a lot of mindset stuff here. And I think that's helpful, right? Like, I think that sometimes, you know, the running a business is the biggest personal development journey on the planet. And this has just been a model where there is a lot of that in it. And so if that feels exciting to you, this might feel exciting. If you're like, oh my God, I would be triggered AF, like, maybe do a little bit more work on that before you move your business model to this, because like that, you don't want to completely flood yourself where it feels so bad. Like, I've definitely had and heard from people where they're like, the day that everyone reports is such a hard day for me. How do I work through that? Like, even if it's good, it's still a hard day for me. And yeah, you just have to be able to kind of like do your own work around it and figure out what you're making that mean. But there is a lot there. So just remembering that. I think I already said this, but projecting revenue just is more challenging. I mean, now we have years of data and we have some like, ranges that we play within. So I can kind of guess sometimes, but it really just depends, right? Because especially if a client has a launch model, like maybe 1 month they pay me $3,000, and 1 month they pay me $10,000 or something. Like, it really just depends. And so what I try to focus on is I know that our base rate covers like my team expenses and things like that. And then, the rest just depends. And it especially depends because, like, let's say you have a new client roll on, old client roll off. Well, that old client was probably at a much higher revenue percent than this brand new person coming in. So it's not even like exchanging client for client in terms of money. It's like you might have a client fill that spot, but it might take quite a bit of time to get their revenue back up to where someone else is. So there's a lot of fluctuation and dynamic in this. And, being able to spend, budget, plan within that is just more of a challenge. Another thing here is logistically, the revenue and percentage invoicing can be a lot to manage. Megan is going to share with y'all her spreadsheet for doing this, which is chef's kiss, so good. But the truth is, it's just manual. There's really no like automation here. I mean, I guess like, could you automate like a form? Well, we've talked about different things like that, but for the most part, it's quite manual, which is just a trade-off. Like, I pay team a lot to get paid, if that makes sense. I'm happy to take that trade-off with this model, and like, it works for me, and I'm like, don't have a thing around that. But if that isn't something you're like thinking about or aware of, you are going to kind of be like, wait, what? Like, it takes us how long to invoice for this? But if you think about it, each client's going to report a different number each month. So there's nothing like manual about that. And then we have to like manually put in that number each month, et cetera, et cetera. And then also like it's just easier for mistakes to happen with that because it's all a manual process of like, put the number in here, invoice over here. And so being willing to be okay if mistakes happen occasionally, and being willing to kind of like pay, so to speak, for the process of that is just also a trade-off that I think people don't always expect or realize. So that is of note. And then the last trade-off I would say, and I don't even know if it's like a trade-off as much as it's just like a cautionary point, is there's just a lot more clarity to create in the initial setup in terms of someone feeling really solid on what revenue share entails. So like, there's just 300 questions that could come up. What if, like, I have this mastermind and it goes in this way, but I do this upsell. Does that count? What if
Hillary says, why do I feel like this lady doesn't know how to convert a Word doc to a PDF? The fact that she said she has to manually go through the form submissions. Do you know that there's one button you can click in a Google form that converts it into an Excel spreadsheet where you could extrapolate all this data? Maybe I should DM her. Do you need a systems automation guru? Let me help you. I click one button. She pays me $5,000.
if I have this client who left and isn't a client right now, but wanted to come back and do that, does that count? Like, there's just a lot of like moving parts, especially if you do new revenue. So just wanting to say that like, there's even more of a purpose or a reason to create a ton of clarity at the beginning of this when someone's going into it, rather than like cleaning that up on the back end. Another thing we're going to give y'all today for being here is our like process sheet that we give to clients, where we kind of try to break down like, here's how to think about this, here's how to look at this, etc.
I believe that's linked, down here, so we can take a look at that after we're done listening to her yap.
And it's just like something you wouldn't think to do in a normal coaching relationship, right? Like, you wouldn't have to like give them something on like how to pay you, right? Or like what counts for paying you. And that just is really an important dynamic to set up here, where someone truly knows what they're getting into and what they're saying yes to, and all the dynamics of it. When I just took on a new client for the partnership model recently, that was like a huge amount of the questions she had. Like, she wasn't resistant to it at all. She was just like, hey, I have like 4 scenarios. Like, what counts, what doesn't, help me understand. And so you just have to like really be willing to like, again, not get super triggered by all that questioning and being like, oh, I'm doing something wrong, or like they don't get it or whatever, but just be like, yeah, I'm like here to walk everyone through that.
Suzanne, your guess is as good as mine. We are 40 minutes in and I still have no idea who the target market is for this masterclass. Honestly, at this point, I wouldn't even call this a masterclass. This is just like a rant, Q&A, maybe even. What is she selling? That's what we're not sure. When I first opened this, I thought it was going to be for her to bring new clients into her coaching. Then I'm thinking she's made this for other coaches who want to adopt this partnership model. Now I'm lost. I don't really know who the target market is for this, nor do I understand what she's going to sell at the end of this class. Hillary says, wait, so if she's teaching people to implement this partnership model where they charge 10% of their clients' revenue, then isn't this literally just a pyramid scheme? Well, especially if she then gets 10% of their 10%. Oh my God, what's happening? I don't know what's happening.
So just wanting to make that a point as well. Again, I don't know if that's completely a trade-off, but I do think it's just important to note, like, there is a little bit more work on the front end there. All right, so trade-offs. That's pretty much it. Anything on trade-offs, Megan, that feels worth adding there that anyone had questions on?
I think you're good. There's some logistic questions, but I know that's the next part you're going into. So
okay, amazing. Yes. Okay. So this is where I might miss some of it. So feel free to let me know. We've been doing this for so long. It's so funny. I told Megan this morning, I was like, we've been doing this for so long that I didn't feel like I had a lot to say. And then when I like wrote it all out and I got everyone's questions, I was like, oh, there's a lot to this, but it just feels normal. So anyway, I'm going to go through process and logistics, but it's quite possible that there's questions I have just normalized so much that I'm not even thinking of. So y'all feel free to let us know there. Okay. So very basic first thing is, make sure your contract is clear about this. Make sure that it clearly outlines like the revenue, that it's new revenue, that it's each month, that it starts when on the start date of coaching, that it ends on the end date of coaching, whatever that is for you. Obviously, no legal advice here, but make sure this is clear in your contract.
Very fair. Erin says, I think it's just a video to try and justify to herself that she's an authority in the field. I believe she's also trademarked she trademarked the partnership model to like add a level of legitimacy, I suppose. So again, I don't know if we're going to get to the point. What is the point of this webinar? What are we targeting? Are we just telling people try this? It's a good idea. Very confused.
Another thing that we personally have in our contract is that we can audit someone's books if we feel the need. We'll talk about that more later, but I've never done that, but it's super valuable and important to me that I have that in my contract because it feels like an important protection for me. So
I can audit anyone's books. So if I tell her, oh, my business only made 10K last month, she could be like, bitch, give me your accounting login so I can look and see. And you actually made $12,000. Now you owe me an extra $200 or whatever the percentage works out to. Like, what? This is crazy. Are you a CPA? Nobody's touching my books. Unless you're a bookkeeper or a CPA, get out of my accounting software. That's all I'll say.
Just remember, like that might be something you want to have as well from like a logistical standpoint. Protect yourself in that way. Make sure that's really clear for you. Protect your clients in that way. Make sure that's really clear for them. The more clarity you can provide on the front end, the better. So what we do in terms of what's included and what's not is it is new revenue. So like I was saying, like on the day we start coaching, anything that day after counts, right? If it's new, if it was recurring payment plan, it does not count. And then it ends when our coaching ends. So like if we end on whatever, like February 8th, then we would like prorate that month or whatever, like came to that or whatever payments came in before February 8th. So, clarity around that is so important and just making that clear. So that's how we do what's included and what's not. One thing to note there that I have been asked before is like, so my contracts go in 6-month increments. Like I said, most of my clients have been working with me for years, but we re-sign every 6 months. And it does not like reset, if that makes sense. So like, whatever, if we came up for re-sign and they were paying me on like a mastermind that they'd been getting 4 months of payments for, and they still had 2 more months, it wouldn't like reset because we signed a new contract. That's just us contractually agreeing to continue the agreement that we have. So, there's no like reset there. I'm seeing this really quick. I didn't even get to read the full thing, but I think it's maybe important, but Megan, clarify if I'm missing the question point, but it's cash, not sales. So I feel like that's important to say too, like cash. So when I say new revenue, I don't mean sales. Like nobody should be paying me on cash they haven't collected. That's really important because I feel like that would be super unfair. So like if they made a 20K sale, but they collected 2,000 of those dollars this month, they're paying me on the 2,000 of those dollars.
Okay, so this is something interesting because I feel like this is specific to the coaching industry, or at least it's where I see it the most, is a lot of these coaches that make revenue claims, you know, my business made $1 bajillion. A lot of that is what they call sales and not cash. So when you see a coach claiming I made 10K cash this month, they don't mean literal cash. They mean they made $10,000 in money in their bank account. But when they say I made 10K in sales, that often means that they just had $10,000 worth of contracts signed. So if I signed a client this month, like often in like the content creation space, for example, we're usually on net 30 or net 60, net 45, any of those three payment terms. So I might sign a contract for $1,500, let's say, now in, what is it, June, but I won't actually receive payment for that work, even if I finish it next week and, you know, submit the deliverables and whatever. I don't actually get payment until 30 days later. So I could say I made $1,500 in sales this month, but it wouldn't be until July where I make $1,500 in cash. And so that's what's really misleading, is because a lot of these coaches say I made X number of sales, X number of cash. A lot of the times, and I believe this came up on a stream a number of months ago, these people are essentially double counting their revenue. Because again, if I come on YouTube in June and say, I made 10K in sales this month, but again, that's just me signing contracts with 5 different clients who are each going to pay me $2,000. And then in July, they all pay me. And then I say, oh, I made 10K in cash. You might think I actually made $20,000 because last month I made 10K in sales and this month I made 20K in cash, when really the 10K cash is the 10K sales that I mentioned last month. I know it's a little bit confusing, but hopefully you get what I'm saying. I think that when we use our sales number as our, you know, qualification of our business, it becomes very misleading if we're also then using our cash numbers. It's like pick one or the other. Either share your sales or share your cash. Personally, I think it makes more sense to share your cash because that's money you've actually made. And if clients default on contracts, you're then not lying. Because if I say I made 10K in sales, but then 4,000 of those dollars never come to my bank account because people file chargebacks or they cancel their contract or whatever, then I really only made $6,000. So it's like, why are we even counting sales if we haven't actually made the money? Again, I think it's something specific to the coaching industry. If people have seen it in other industries, please let me know. But I don't like it. I do not like it. And at least I'll say she is only collecting money on the cash, which again makes sense. But it's stupid that we're even counting sales at all if we haven't seen the money. Three Flamingo says, I'm giving this one a 1 out of 10 for integrity. The 1 is because she openly declared her grift. Harrison says, my old coach used to say, we have a lawyer who can audit your bank account to prove you made what you did, but it wasn't written in the contract, of course. Tax is the bottom line and writes off everything. Get this lady some Sage accounting. Comment Sage and I'll send you my link. Exactly. Aaron says, just share whichever one looks better in whatever month you're asked to give the number. And that's what I think a lot of coaches do, especially on social media. If they have a high sales month, they'll say, oh, I made $50,000 in sales. But then the next month, if they don't sign any new clients, they'll just go, oh, I made $20,000 in cash. When it's like, no, those are all the clients you signed last month. They're just finally paying you now. So silly. I don't like it. I don't like it one bit.
Right. So just a note on that, it is cash. What else do I want to say here? I already talked about the cap. We cap at 20,000 per month in payments. Just some like examples of like alternative things that I've had to deal with that I thought might be helpful to hear is, you know, I've had someone come to me with like a therapy practice and an online coaching business and kind of be like, hey, listen, my therapy practice is full. It's good. I will sign new clients there in our time together, but like, that's not really what I want coaching on. I want coaching on my online business. And so we have excluded the therapy practice and been like, cool. I mean, not that you could never ask me a question about that. It's just like, that's not really the work we're doing. This is the work we're doing. And this is what's included in revenue share. I've had someone that had a brick and mortar as well as an online business. And we excluded the brick and mortar payments from revenue share for a multitude of reasons. but mostly just didn't really work on the brick and mortar together. Like it kind of came into place, and she could ask me a question here and there. It's just like that was never the bulk of our coaching sessions. And so
100%. William says, personally, I prefer the end of year net profit or even monthly. I check my net profit monthly because I have neuroticism and I need to know what's going on. A story for another day, I suppose. But net profit is always going to win over sales, over cash, over any of it. How much money are you taking home in your pocket? That's what's more interesting to me.
that just didn't count. Another example would be partners.
No, she's not saying she's a therapist. She's saying one of her clients was a therapist and was also a coach. So she was only helping her with the coaching business and not the therapy side. Although I do believe this woman said she is a therapist or was a therapist previously. I'll look it up on my phone while we listen.
I think this really, really depends on the dynamic. But personally for me, I probably wouldn't take on, like if somebody was in a partnership and just they wanted to coach with me and just wanted to say like, hey, I'm just going to coach with you, so it'd be 10% of just my share. I would probably be a no to that, simply because I'm coaching all of the business, but just have your buy-in or your share. And that makes it really, really difficult. And so I wouldn't do it because I would care so much about the money, but I would do it because that doesn't feel like partnership to me. Like I'd either want to be partners in the business with everyone or not.
So she has an MS. Is that Master of Science? I don't know. MS in mental health counseling and an MBA in ethical leadership. The irony.
So again, you get to pick what feels good. I just wanted to give some examples of some logistic things that have come up. But like the partner one is like, for me, I'd really want you both bought in, because if not, I'm coaching you on stuff that you only even have half the opportunity to implement. And that feels like it gets dicey. So that's a dynamic I wanted to mention. But mostly in these kind of alternate scenarios, my biggest goal always, and how I think about it whenever I'm like setting it up, is how can we be very clean and very clear here? I think that it's so easy sometimes to kind of want to go into some of that nuance of like, well, yeah, like your existing therapy practice wouldn't count in this way, but if we add this, then it might count for this. But I try to stay away from all of that shit. Like even if it would make me an extra $1,000 or something like that, like goal equals clean, clear, right? It should be super clear what revenue counts. It should be super clean, and anything we can do to make a decision that makes it clean and clear is like of the utmost importance to me. So if you're kind of faced with a situation like that, that's what I would hold as your priority. I think the last thing that you ever want in a model like this is for every single month there to be a question. Does this count? Does this count? Does that count? Like, not ideal, right? That is when this model can feel kind of like gross and weird and whatever, because you're like, well, you don't think it counts. I kind of think it counts. We didn't get clear enough. Now it's weird. Do I make you? Do I not make you? Like, stay away from all that shit. Clean, clear at the beginning, like best advice I could possibly give. So I think I said that about reset. Very quickly on process, how it works for us is we send 2 invoices a month. One is the base rate, which is obviously that one is automated, right? That's just an automated invoice that goes out every month. 2 is the revenue percentage. That is where the process that Megan has in the spreadsheet that we'll share with you comes in. So, clients report to us. We use Basecamp with our clients. So an automated reminder goes out in Basecamp on the first Tuesday of every month. This does not have to be how you do it. Again, this is how we do it. An automated reminder goes out in Basecamp first Tuesday of every month. Everyone has a few days to report their income. If not, we'll follow up with them. For the most part, people do, but of course we have to remind people from time to time. Then once Megan follows up and that's clear, she'll send out invoices for that. And then they have 10 days to pay the invoice off of that. We have had people ask specifically like, hey, can my base payment always come out on the 1st? Because partnership usually gets invoiced around the 10th to 15th. And I want that space between them. Totally fine. We're always happy to adjust for that. But like some people it's no thing for. So it just depends. Some people like they come one right after the other and they like that dynamic and would rather just get them paid close together and be done. So that's sort of how we handle that. We really treat that on a case-by-case basis. I think that's it in terms of like the actual invoicing. Sometimes we do have to do follow-ups there, just like you would with any invoice, because personally for me, I've always preferred invoicing versus automatic payments in my business. But
how would you even automatically pay a different amount of money every month? Like, you specifically, lady, said business goes like this. Revenue, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. How am I going to automatically invoice my clients if one month they're making $10,000 and the next month they're making $5,000? How am I going to do it? Somebody explain. I don't get it. You don't get it. You can't automate something that isn't the same. No duh. No duh. You have to invoice them, obviously.
That's just me. I think I'm the the outlier there. But we do have to follow up because it's invoice, right? And it has to be invoice because those numbers aren't always the same. So that is just another dynamic of like, there's a bit of a trade-off there. Like we have to follow up a little bit more sometimes than if it was just one automatic payment a month to be like, hey, reminder, we sent you that invoice. Maybe it got lost in your email, whatever. Like some of my clients have, tasked that to their team to pay that each month, but it is a more manual process for us and for the client. So,
or maybe the client is strapped for cash and can't afford it because you're gouging them. Maybe. Saying this as someone who constantly has to chase clients for payment. I'm like, hello, I can see in my software you haven't opened the invoice and it's literally due tomorrow. Pay me. Hello. Honestly, if I had the option to set up automatic payments, I probably would. Let's be real.
So there is just a little bit more follow-up associated with that. And yeah, it's just manual process to track and manage. We do it all in that spreadsheet. I think that's it in terms of process. Megan, I imagine there's some questions around that. You may have also answered some of them.
Alexis wants to know why she's giving away her dirty secrets. Honestly, your guess is as good as mine. I'm seeing all the comments about Bubba. Bubba is at peak fluffiness. We call him Glooby when he looks like this. So fluffy, he can't even see. I can't even see his eyeballs. He goes to get a haircut on Wednesday. So then he will be Bruno, we call him, once he gets a haircut because he looks like a completely different dog. So next week he will be slim and trim and shaved for the summer.
This is sort of your wheelhouse, but do you want to tell me if there's anything else I could add there?
You have answered a lot of them, but one real quick, do you require proof of revenue be submitted in reporting like through a screenshot or something? You want to talk about that real quick?
Great question. We do not. They're able to just tell us a number. Some of my clients do that because they just want me to see their P&L. So
wait, what was the question? I got to go back. I wasn't listening.
I think that's it in terms of process. Megan, I imagine there's some questions around that. You may have also answered some of them because this is sort of your wheelhouse, but do you want to tell me if there's anything else I could add there?
You have answered a lot of them, but one real quick, do you require proof of revenue be submitted in reporting like through a screenshot or something? You want to talk about that real quick?
Great question. We do not. They're able to just tell us a number. Some of my clients do that because they just want me to see their P&L. So it just depends. Some of my clients will just submit a P&L every month. Some of my clients will just share a number. I don't think I've ever had anyone share screenshots. No, I don't think so. That's not something that we require. I think if you were really worried about that, that could be something that you require as like a screenshot, but that's never been something we felt was necessary. Cool. Is that the only one, Megan?
Also, asking about do clients report full income and we decipher what's included or new, or do clients figure out what's included and what's not?
We put it on them to figure out what's included and what's not because we really believe like they're the ones that know that. So sometimes like if they want me to know like total revenue because it's helpful for like our clarity for our coaching, we'll have them say like total revenue is X, new revenue is Y, right? So it's still clear to us. Like I can know, oh, they had a 50K month, amazing. Like that's helpful for me to know based on XYZ goal we're working to, but my team can know, okay, we're only charging a percentage off of X. I will say, and maybe Megan can speak to this for a second, but I will say that different people like to report in different ways. And Megan has just gotten really good at like knowing. So some people will tell us, I owe you X. Like, you know what I mean? Like if they had a 20K month, they'll be like, okay, I owe you 2K in revenue share. Other people will be like, I had a 20K month. So like people kind of just report in different ways. Some people like to, even if like, let's say they're an Australian client, they are reporting in AUD. So some of them want to report in AUD. Some of them convert it for us. Like we don't have super strict rules around that because Megan's pretty good at being like, I know how each person likes to report and we just respond to that. But I think, Megan's probably like, yes, let's clean this up. No, I'm kidding. But I think that you could be more diligent about that if you wanted to be. Like you could be like, you're only able to report, exactly what you owe in USD, blah, 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 blah. Like you could get a little bit more specific there, but we don't. We're just kind of happy to be flexible on that. But like Megan's been doing this for a while and it's easier for her to do it, but I'm sure if you were just starting out at that, it might be nice to have some of those boundaries. I don't know what you think about that, Megan.
I think it's just about clarity. Like, I think it's just like, if you want something to happen a certain way, you just have to clearly communicate that with clients. And so I think that that's kind of, it's just, again, kind of like clarifying what are the logistics that you want to implement there, and then kind of just making sure that it's clear for your client. So when, with the bonus, the client PDF that you guys will get that we send to clients, we specify that. We just say, hey, we'll assume that you're reporting in USD. If you're not, let us know and we'll convert it for you, kind of thing.
It seems kind of chaotic to me that they wouldn't, like, first of all, it seems chaotic that you just like are using the honor system and trusting that your clients are going to tell you the truth. But second of all, to be like this scale of a business, this woman calls herself like a multi-million-dollar business owner. You're telling me there's no software or system out there that can do this for you? Like, what is her obsession with having everything done manually, but also like not consistently? If I have clients all over the world, wouldn't I just be like, I'm in the US, so, you know, tell me in US dollars. Don't make me do the extra work. You tell me how much money you owe me. That's it. Like, what? This seems just like very kind of like thrown together lazily. There's no real system. We just do it on a case-by-case basis. You're wasting time. If you're such a successful business owner, shouldn't you know the value of systems and processes? Crazy. I'm just like dumbfounded.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. All right, so let's go into questions. These are the questions that I got.
Do you want to do a couple of logistic questions that are still from the chat? So how did you find a lawyer that understood the nuance to write up your contract?
I'm laughing because I don't know if they actually did. I think I just had to like tell them 52 times. And I think they were still like, what? But for me, what I would say to that is like, I'm not super worried about that being like ironclad perfect. Like, I'm probably not taking someone to court over this or something, you know what I mean? So like, I feel like it was said in a way that at least made it really, really clear to me and to the client. That's what was most important to me, that we felt like we were signing something with like a lot of clarity. But yeah, I don't feel like it was ever understood completely and entirely, just to be transparent.
This is circling back to the conversation before about your example of having two partners and all of that. So if there are two partners and you have the buy-in from both of them to work with you, would you? And then if so, would both partners be together in coaching sessions?
Yes, I would do it if I had buy-in from both, for sure. And I would have them both in coaching sessions. I wouldn't say there would never be a time where maybe like one would come and another wouldn't, or whatever. Like maybe if they each owned a piece of the business and we were just talking about one piece of the business, or like they had a really big mindset thing they needed to process. But in general, like I would want both there most of the time.
Okay, how do you, maybe you already kind of talked about this, but how do you ensure that clients are sticking to their end of the bargain and reporting their true revenue?
Yes, that was actually, so that's like the second most asked question we got in question. So like happy to just dive into that and share on that, because that was for sure, I think, yeah, like I said, second most popular is, I think I said this earlier, but like we do have it in our contract that we can edit their books. I have never done that. I fully trust their reporting. And if I didn't, I feel like there would be just like a much bigger misalignment as a client. That's something I always remind myself is like, that would be like a smaller problem of a much bigger problem, which is like, this client shouldn't be a client if I really feel like they're showing up and lying in their reporting. So I would just try to think about it like that a little bit if you can. Like, obviously, again, lots of trust and surrender with this model. But like, yeah, like if I've never had this experience, so I'm just talking like hypotheticals here, but if I really felt like this person is not being honest with me here, and it's like a couple months of someone like really just not being honest, like I would be having a totally different conversation with that client. Like it wouldn't be like, hey, can I edit your book or audit your books? It would be more like, hey, something's not feeling good here. I do not feel like we are on the same page with integrity and values. And I think we need to, really have that discussion and potentially part ways. So I would just think about it as like, this is like a smaller piece of like what could be a bigger issue if they just weren't the right client. Another thing that's,
this comment says, I'm out. No actual business related smarts at all. She is certified clueless. This whole presentation is giving like, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm going to act like an expert anyway, which I mean is what the majority of these coaches are doing. But usually it's like, I don't know, fluffy and funny kind of to watch. But this is just like almost as if she wants you to take her seriously and she's trying to be an authority, but is still just so clueless and like outright telling on herself. That's the impression I'm getting anyway. Also, yeah, in regards to the auditing, I know someone else mentioned it already too. I don't know. Like, if she's not a CPA, I don't imagine she can just like ask to audit your books. That seems kind of crazy.
Not everyone does this, and it's not like the end all be all, but a lot of my clients do share their revenue numbers publicly too. So, they're never like sharing one thing with me and then something different online. Like, again, that would be like a whole different conversation of like, either you're lying online, which is like a huge fucking problem for me, or you're lying to me. But again, like the problem isn't that I'm missing out on $3,000. Like the problem is that like you're lying, right? So, but the fact that like a lot of them do share publicly, I do think creates an even deeper layer of transparency there.
AKA, I am closely watching what my clients are posting on social media and cross-referencing it to the amount of revenue they say that they owe me. They owe me.
Finally, like I'm just in the business with them a lot. Like that is the point of one-on-one. That is the point of partnership. So I just feel like I have such a good sense of where things are at, and that I really have my pulse on it enough that like I really would notice if something was off. Could someone be lying to me by a few $1,000s? Like, of course they could, right? But I really do not think they are, and literally have never had that experience or felt weird about it. And I don't share that to like put myself on a pedestal and be like, this is never a problem for me, because I hate it when people do that in coaching. But I share that to say, it feels like a bigger problem, I think, when you're thinking about it than when you're in it. It's like one of those things that you can really, really overthink on the front end. But my experience of being in it for the past few years is that it's just never really a problem. And if it is, it would be pointing to a problem like this client is not the right client, not how do I make sure I get the right revenue amount reported. So I feel like there's some ease in being able to kind of like let go of that worry a little bit, because it's just really not as much of a thing in the experience of it than I think it can seem like. Cool. Anything else logistically, Megan, or should I just dive into the rest of our questions here?
Oh my God, we're not
Just a
done.
couple small things.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just a couple small things. You already talked about some of this a little bit, but just clarifying, like if someone runs a 12-month program, but you're only working with them for 6 months, is it 10% of total contract price or 10% of cash received each month? I think you kind of answered that already. Yes. With cash received.
Cash received, exactly. Like technically I would be losing out on that if they didn't continue, but like, that's okay. That's part of, the game of doing business.
And then you already talked about how you predict your revenue basically off of just like base rate, and just clarifying, do your team members pay stay the same or fluctuate with yours?
Theirs stays exactly the same. Like I have a commitment to my team, and I have a commitment to keep our base rate above their expenses, so they never have to worry about that. So I feel like I'm the one that chose this model, and I'm the one that kind of needs to like shoulder the burden of that, so to speak. Like I don't think it's fair to ask my team members to shoulder the fact that like our income can fluctuate based on clients. So like that's me, that's my work, that's what I handle. They shouldn't have to do that.
Cool. I think that the rest of them, you can kind of go through. I think a lot of them kind of overlap with some of the other questions you'll answer, and then we'll circle back to any that at the end.
Amazing. You're the best. Thank you. Okay. So the most frequent question I got asked is some version of like how this applies to other business models. Like what if I help someone with something other than business, or what if like I have people working underneath me or whatever, like what are the other applications of partnership model if you're not having someone, just be a one-on-one client that you're helping with business. The best application that I've found for this outside of that is for it to be more like a bonus structure than a revenue percentage, but still partnership, right? So what I mean by that, I feel like it's like slightly taboo to use this as an example now, but I'm just going to for the sake of like an easy thing for my brain to go to, so I don't spend 5 minutes sitting here thinking. But like, let's say someone hires you because they want to lose 20 pounds and their goal is like lose 20 pounds. What you could do is have some bonus structures with that. Like, okay, when you lose, 10, like there could be a bonus associated with that. When you get to 20, there could be a bonus associated with that. So they're paying based on results, but it's different than paying based on monetary results, right? So I think there are a lot of ways to play with partnership that looks like bonuses and not just revenue. And I think that could be a really fun way to do it, because it's still
I don't know. I just kind of feel like using the word partnership is misleading. And you guys can let me know what you think in the live chat, or if you're watching the replay, you can let me know in the comments. But to call this a partnership when it's not, I guess in a sense it's mutually beneficial in that like the coach gets all the money. But like for the client, I don't know. I cannot be convinced that it's fair to not only pay a base rate, but also pay the 10%. Like to me, that doesn't feel like a partnership. A partnership is like we are both taking the risk, and then we both get the reward. But in this case, in my opinion, the client takes 100% of the risk and the coach still gets the reward. So like, what part of that is a partnership? Please let me know.
Fundamental like message and belief behind it, which is like pay based on your results, like have the coach put their money where their mouth is kind of thing. So those are like really good alternative ways to think about incorporating this if it's not so clear, like dollar for dollar, like my model is set up. But you know, I think people also get that. Like they get like, oh yeah, I'm like paying you X, but if I got X result that we're working toward, like I would absolutely pay like a bonus off of that. You know, it's kind of just like in your job, if you're, you know, tracking KPIs and then you get a bonus based on hitting those KPIs. Like that's how I would think about this as an alternative. So I think lots of applications there.
Yeah, but in a job, the employer is taking the risk of like hiring me as the employee. Right? Like, guys, I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it.
And yeah, I think that's most of it there. Obviously, if anyone has follow-up questions, second most asked question I already answered, which was like, how do you know your clients are giving you accurate figures? Third question was, can I use this in like a mastermind model or group setting? Absolutely. What I would say to that is I think that you would probably want to think about, does that model, like, could someone re-sign in your mastermind? Like a lot of what works with revenue share is someone staying with you for the long haul, like not just 3 months or something. Like obviously you can make money off of 3 months, but you're probably not really going to realize the value that quickly in it. So if it was like something where someone could stay with you for, you know, 6 months in your mastermind and then would have the opportunity to re-sign in that mastermind, I think this could be a really good fit for it. I think if it's something really short or like, you know, okay, we're in this program for 3 months or whatever, I do think that could be a little bit more challenging because it's just, in my opinion, like the results take time to play out. And it's just like a little bit unlikely that those would actually match up in a way that would super serve you long term. So it is possible, but I think it does depend a little bit on the structure. Next question is, have you ever used this with clients who have multiple business income streams where you've had to navigate excluding portions? Yes, I mentioned this above, but again, I just wanted to like reiterate, clean, clear. Like it's totally fine to like go off page and like have someone that has a lot going on or whatever. Like this model can fit anybody as long as there's a ton of clarity at the beginning. So that's like always the goal there. Next one, is there a certain income range for it that makes sense to you? Absolutely makes the most sense to me personally to have a mix of both, because the clients that I make the most money off of right now start with me at 0 or close to, right? Because I'm basically getting 10% off their entire business, right? So I have a few clients that started with me at pretty much 0 and now make 7 figures. Obviously they're paying me the most because it's off of that entire business, right? Versus, you know, some clients that maybe come to me further along, I'll make money quicker with them because they're already making a lot of money. But the long-term realization isn't there in the exact same way, right? Over time it will be, but not right away. So having kind of a balance of both, one where it's like long-term, we'll probably make way more together, and one where it's like short-term.
So Aaron's asking why Megan isn't asking the questions. Megan was moderating the chat, and now I guess this woman is just scrolling the chat on her own. I'm not really sure. You'd think if you're paying a VA or whatever Megan is, you would have her do the grunt work, right? And then you're just there to yap. But what do I know? I don't have a VA, so I'm just a pleb.
That cash influx happens quicker. Having a little bit of both of those has been really nice for me in business in terms of kind of balancing some of the risk associated with this model. So I think it really works well for either, but I do think both have like different pieces that are like benefits or trade-offs there. All right. Oh, okay. This was a great one. I think probably a question a lot of people would have too, which is, I believe a low monthly base rate always affects how clients show up. And I know certain price ranges, people naturally show up differently. How can I get through the block and exclusively do the partnership model? So basically what this person is saying, I think, is like, gosh, your base rate's quite low. My base rate for offering this would be quite low. Like, am I going to just attract people that don't fully show up in that or feel like it's like, oh, it's not that much, whatever. And will that impact the experience? What I would say is, honestly, I've not had this experience, but I do think it can be in how you frame and market it. I think if you're marketing,
I feel like her answer to every question is, well, that hasn't happened to me, so I don't really know, but let me just yap something out of my ass, blah, 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 blah. It's like, do you have any experience? Can you answer? Like, don't answer the question if you can't answer the question. Holy moly, this lady is crazy.
This as like the cheaper option, then I can see why that would be true. Someone's like, oh, this is the easier and cheaper option, so I'm going to take that. And then it like, can come with like a little bit of a lean back. We'll see what happens kind of energy. But what I tell most of my clients is they'll probably end up paying me way more through this model than they would someone else. And I think that makes them look at it in a different way, right? Like when I did that 20% no base rate, like I was talking about, those people paid me more than clients paying a regular rate at that time.
Now, I will say when I did, again, if you jumped on late, I did a video already discussing this. It's what are they called? Like a long form video on my YouTube channel where I'm not just like yapping into the ether. More succinct, if you will, a deep dive. A couple of weeks ago, it's linked in the description of this live stream that you're watching. But in that video, I show the example of another coach who also uses this business model. And that particular coach actually offers, I don't think they have a cap on the revenue share, but instead what they do is you can either pay the base rate plus 10%, or you can just opt to pay $25,000 for the time that you're coaching together, which I thought was kind of interesting. Because if you allegedly have $1 million business, $25,000 is a lot less than 10% of your revenue. Just saying.
So I really have always framed it like that. And I think it's about the framing it as high ticket, high value versus framing it as like, oh, look at this inexpensive base rate. Every now and then I'll talk about how my base rate's low just because it tickles me sometimes. Like, I think that's funny. Like, I'm like, look, we're making $1 million and our base rate's $1,250. Like, sometimes I get a kick out of it, but I never really use it like as a marketing tool. Like, I'm not like, look at how little you'd be able to pay to start, if that makes sense, because I do feel like that could attract the wrong client, wrong messaging. So I think that this is really much more of like a framing and marketing kind of thing there. Next one, a lot of people ask some version of is this difficult to get clients to understand and buy into? I think it's just a type of person at a certain stage, if that makes sense. So I feel like if someone is really looking for like that ultimate guru or that like really quick, fast win, they might not be the most attracted to this model. Let's just be honest, right? Like it takes a certain type of person who's looking for a true coach and a true partner to be like, that is what I want. And for that person, when they see this, I feel like it clicks so quickly. Like I've had so many people find me, hear about my model, and then be like, this is everything I've been looking for. Duh, this makes so much sense. And I've like had other people find it to be a total turn off. And
I want to talk to those people. I want to talk to the people that saw this and were like, wow, this is an incredible business opportunity. Because something tells me those people don't actually understand business. Just saying.
So I don't think it's necessarily hard to sell people on it at all. I think it's more about marketing to and finding the people that are looking for long-term results, true partnership, true coaching, that kind of thing. Like if they're like, I want to figure out how to make 30K in 30 days, like who's got the secret? Who's going to tell me? And like, where's that? Like, yeah, they're probably not going to love this. You know what I mean? But that can be okay. So just a note on like, is this for everyone? No, but I find that if it's the right person, it's very, very easy to get them bought into it because they're like, oh my God, a partner, someone that gets it, someone that's in it with me, someone that like literally wins if I win or loses if I lose. Like that's what I've been craving. Like that part has been simple. Okay. Next one is, when someone applies to work with you in this model, how do you know you can trust the quality and integrity of their products and services? Is there a way you screen for this ahead of time, or do you just trust that their products and services are delivering on results? I think there's a way when you market and show up with certain values that you typically get a mirror for that, right? So I talk about integrity a lot. So I think it's really unlikely that a lot of totally out of integrity people would want to partner with me and have me as a partner in their business. So I feel like I create a pretty good filter for that.
Because I decided that I am operating in integrity, I am now the one that gets to determine who is and isn't in integrity. And I just decide anyone who questions what I'm doing or perhaps suggests that there's some red flags, those people just aren't operating in integrity and they just don't get it. They're just not one of us. And they're using their broke mindset to keep them to hold themselves back. Okay. So just, I don't want to hear it.
But at the end of the day, like, let's call it what it is. Like sometimes you don't know what's going on until you get under the hood.
Thank you so much. Harrison just shared the link to the video I was referencing in the chat if you want to watch it once we're done here. Also, those of you watching the replay, I'll make sure that it's in the pinned comment of the replay.
And I also don't think that you can fully be responsible for all of that. You know, like one of my desires is that through our work together, my clients are able to help improve their programs, help get their clients get better and better results. Like in some ways, I see that as part of my work and role. So I don't feel like there's this certain way of like, you have to be delivering perfect results to be coached or get support. Like maybe you're struggling in that, and that's one of the reasons you're coming to coaching. So I don't screen for it in like this huge way. I think you need to be in integrity, and I think you need to not be just like telling someone you're going to do something you're not doing and taking their money. But I also feel like there's just such a vast gray area there. And I think coming to support and getting support around that doesn't have to be a bad thing. So I don't honestly worry about that too much. Okay, why 10% is another big one. Why 1250? Why 10%? So the reason I picked 10% is because to me, coaching is a very important part of growth. Very important, right? But it's like 90% on how the business owner shows up. It just is, right? Like that's kind of how I think about it in my head. I'm like, I can like really help with like 10%, but like 90% of you is you, what you do with it. Like we're going to meet for 3 sessions a month and you're going to have Basecamp access in between. Like 90% of what happens outside of that, like that's on you, right? And so it just felt...
That's giving very classic coach vibes. It's not my responsibility. It's the responsibility of the client. If the client doesn't get results, it's because they just didn't believe hard enough in themselves. They didn't try hard enough. Shut the up, lady. Three Flamingos is asking, is there survivor testimonies in Reddit? I am currently looking it up. We shall see. We shall see.
Like a representation of that to have in the percentage, you know, which is also, again, like I was saying, why we have a cap and stuff. Like it feels like, what is my contribution here? And does that make sense? And for me, it's like 90% of it's on you. So like you keep 90%, you know, that's just how I've thought about it. I also think another reason that I picked 90%, give me 90% of your revenue. Another reason I picked 10% is because it's also sustainable, right? Like paying someone 50% of your revenue long-term isn't sustainable in any way, shape, or form. So to me, 10% of revenue going towards like development, strategy, support is a number that just makes sense for most businesses long-term. Like it's a sustainable investment. It makes sense. Like it aligns to what kind of results it can help you achieve. So that 10% for me, it's almost like a lot of my clients can just be like, oh yeah, 10% of my revenue is always going to go to coaching, development, strategy, support, line item done. Where like if someone had to pay huge chunk of money and like 50% of their revenue to work with me, like, yeah, like that probably wouldn't be sustainable. And like, maybe we could like do some great work together for a few months, but we're never going to realize that true potential together long-term. So that is why I chose that. Why I chose 1250 is honestly not well thought out. It was just what I was charging at the time. Like I was charging $12.50 a month for one-on-one coaching at the time. And I just basically said, I'm raising my rates. It's $12.50 a month plus 10% now. Like that was all I did. I didn't take down my base rate or anything like that. I really just said, this is what I've already been charging. And I'm adding 10% on top of that. And like I said, that was like what, 2018. So could I have raised my base rate since then? 100%. Maybe I will one day. We'll see. Like I don't.
Shouldn't you be calculating? You said your base rate. Lady, make up your mind. You said an hour ago that your base rate was based on covering your overhead costs of your team. Now you're saying you just made it up? Which story is it? If we're going to tell lies, write down the lies so we can keep our story straight, because I'm paying attention. I'm paying attention to you. I'm listening to what you're saying, and you're not making any sense. Is the base cost based on covering your overhead costs, or is it based on it just sounded like a good number and now I'm going to raise the price because I feel like it? Because what's the problem with the coaching industry? People are pulling prices out of their fucking asses just because it feels good. It feels aligned. Let's talk about business. We're business experts, aren't we? Let's talk about how we calculate pricing. And I can promise you, feeling the vibe of, oh, I might just charge more money because I feel like it. That's not typically how we build a business. But what do I know? I'm just a silly little internet hater troll.
I don't have anything against that, but also like it doesn't feel like a huge concern to me right now. And also like I let my clients stay at the rate they came in at. So, and I have such, low client turnover that like it would at this point, maybe make me an extra $200 a month if I raised it or something. So I just haven't. I haven't really thought about it that much, but yeah, $12.50 does not have to be it for you. You can have like whatever iteration of that feels good. I've just stayed at that because that's what I started at. And it's never felt like a big lever to pull for me, but it was just me going, cool, this is what I'm making right now. I'm going to add 10% on top of it. And that's how I did it. All right, Megan, do you have some questions? I feel like.
Yeah, very good point. This comment says, even the fund managers, the equivalent of coaches in the finance industry, charge at most 2.5% of assets managed. 10% does seem pretty crazy, especially knowing that, like, assuming the majority of her clients are also coaches, and coaches are notorious for having insane overhead expenses, speaking from experience, but also just like anecdotally from conversations I've had, because they're hiring, you know, multiple coaches or have all these like fancy softwares, whatever, their operating costs tend to be really high. So if you're now also, let's say you're spending 40% of your revenue on, you know, your softwares and your mentors and whatever, now you're also having to pay another 10% on top of that. Plus you have to pay your taxes. Like, you're running out of money pretty quickly, let me say. 10% is a lot.
Like, there are a couple more in here, but I would love to stop if you have some questions from the audience.
Yeah, one is real quick. When it comes to promoting the partnership model, do we have to buy a license from you, or is it okay to just mention you for the idea?
Oh yeah, feel free. I mean, I have like no issue with somebody running with that. I feel like if anything, I'm like, this is so cool that people get to use it. I mean, obviously I would appreciate like a mention or some version of like inspired credit or whatever, but yeah, like no purchase, no nothing. Like, if this makes our industry like grow in a way that feels like more trustworthy or whatever, like I'm all for that, but I appreciate you asking.
Okay, so then someone else said that they got feedback about, like, some negative feedback about this business model. One person asked, like, these are things that they had been hearing.
Yeah. Like in this space or with someone they talked to about it. Yeah, got it.
So like, why would people pay more for the same service? And can you categorically say that your input created X output because results aren't solely the product of the coach?
Okay, yeah. Okay, say the first part. Why would someone pay more for the same service?
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I feel like this is like a little cheesy to say, but like, I think it's just hard unless you've experienced it. But like I think about some of my clients I've been with for like 3 years, and we've gone from like a 0 to whatever, multiple 6, 7 figures, et cetera, together. Like, they love paying it. And I don't say that in like this weird way of like fan worshiping me or any of that's like, they literally feel like we did this together. Like, that a lot of my clients have it as a goal to pay me more, and not again in the way where they feel pressured, but because it feels cool to be like, look at what we fucking did. Like, so technically, are they paying more for the same service? Yeah. But also, like, if they stopped working with me tomorrow and went to go hire another coach that could support them at the 7-figure level, would they also be paying more for that service? Yeah.
Okay, I think that she's kind of touching on this comment here. So this one says, how does she have low client turnover? If they scale, why do they need to stay in her container? Like, this sounds like she is feeding off clients failing and codependency on her cult. And I think that the latter half of that statement is likely what we're seeing here. I mean, we see this across coaching, this incessant sort of need and narrative that like your business is going to fail if you don't have a coach. And in order to be a successful coach, you yourself have to be getting coached, which in my opinion is what makes the whole industry seem so much like a pyramid scheme, because it's very, very difficult to be taken seriously as a coach if you yourself don't also have a coach. And so presumably she relies on the fact that like clients feel as though in order to continue to be successful, they need to be getting mentored. And so it's probably easier to just like stick with the person you know than to move on to the next coach, the next coach, the next coach. That's just my guess. But if you guys have thoughts, you can share them in the comments.
So like, I don't know. That's just never been a thing that's weird for me or for my clients. Like, the service expands, I guess, right? Like, what I'm helping and holding within a 7-figure business versus what I was helping and holding with when they had 5 clients is vastly different. Does it still look like a certain amount of calls and access? Sure. But like, my role really does evolve quite a bit. But like,
Aaron says, did we find out what the service actually consists of? 3 calls a month and access, whatever that means. And apparently all this other stuff as you start to scale.
If it was like thing for thing and you wanted to just be like, I'm paying more for 3 calls, like, I would just say like, you don't get it. I don't know how else to say that nicely. I know the person who's asking that isn't saying they thought that someone said that to them, but like, it's just, that's not partnership to me. And so
again, that's such a classic response for, I don't know if it's necessarily criticism, but any kind of questioning is like, oh, well, you just don't get it. How many times, raise your hand if you have ever been in the coaching industry and received some kind of feedback. I'm speaking from my own experience. some kind of feedback about either the services you're offering or the services you're paying for, and your response to that criticism or question is just, oh, well, you just don't get it. I remember having my coaching business and having people in my personal life say to me, like, why would anyone pay for that? And I would go, you just don't get it. It's like, rather than stop and reflect and think, you know, maybe what I'm selling isn't actually worth the prices that I'm charging, I just go, you just don't get it. Like, no, maybe if people don't want to buy what you're selling, it's because you're selling something that's not good. You know what I mean? Like, it's not just about finding the next sucker. It's about actually using that feedback and critically thinking, like, okay. Like, if I post a YouTube video and I'm getting numerous comments that are asking the same thing or making the same criticism, my response isn't going to be, oh, well, they just don't get the video. It's going to be, maybe there's something wrong with my perspective. Maybe there's something wrong with the way I communicated it. Like, sorry, what?
Yeah, someone really had that thought, like they just wouldn't be a fit for this. Second one, Megan, sorry, I forget again.
Basically, can you categorically say your input created X output? Yes, results aren't the only product of the coach.
Yes, and to Erin's point here, Erin says only 3 calls a month. We get 4 2-hour videos a month here. Yeah, so you all actually owe me whatever the math is on that, $12.50, but then we got to divide that by 3 and then times it by 4. So you each owe me like $1,600, preferably US because I'm in Canada, so that's like $2,000 where I live. And you can pay me via PayPal. Okay, thank you so much for being here. And that this was really all part of my grift to create a cult where you all just pay me $2,000 a month. So thanks for being my clients. And I'll give you also get to give me 10% of any money you make, whether you have a salary job or you own a business. I get 10%. So details to my bank account are linked down below.
Yeah, no. Do I know that I created 10% of that? No. Could I have created 90% of that? Probably. I don't know. Like, you can't say that. But also, you can't say that with any coaching model. Like, could I pay a coach $3,000 a month, and then could I guarantee that their coaching resulted in at least $3,000 a month returned to me?
100%. Harrison, this sound is for you. Where is it? Here.
I'm always baffled when people don't have a life coach or don't want one. I'm like, what? It's the most amazing thing ever.
That's why people stay with her for years on end, because it's the most amazing thing ever.
No, that's just not how any of this works. So, I mean, while I can appreciate that question, I feel like it's just quite short-sighted.
You get
and
me,
not
Erin.
really
You get me.
taking into account anything. Like, again, use that for anything. Could I say I paid my therapist, whatever, $400? Do I know that that was worth exactly? No. It's like, I don't know. That's just not a thing to me.
Okay, one more to sneak.
So read between the lines on that answer. The answer is, I don't have a way to measure my impact. Therefore, you just have to give me 10% and trust that it's because of me. That's basically what she said, because she's saying, when I go to therapy, there's no way for me to measure, what the results of the therapy are. Okay, so now as a coach, there's no way to measure the outcomes. That's where it's problematic for me, because if we have 3 calls a month, that's a lot of time. 3 hours a month. How many hours are in a month? Hundreds, right? Somebody do the math. A lot of hours in a month, a lot more than 3. I know that for sure. So how is it that you're going to say that those 3 hours of calls that we have in a month are going to be more impactful than the actual work I'm doing? What if I'm, taking other courses, networking, talking to people, reading books, blah, 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 experimenting, iterating? You're going to take responsibility for 100% of that because there's no way for me to measure it? I don't know. I'm just not buying it. No wonder people are saying, like, this doesn't make sense, because it literally doesn't make sense.
Again. From your experience, do your clients spend much more on their learning and development on top of the 10%, like upskilling in different areas for their business? Or is your coaching covering the vast majority of their development needs?
I would say typically we try to cover like the vast majority. I think they play in other stuff sometimes for sure. And obviously if they feel good doing that, like they have my support in that. But yeah, like I feel like if this is just an example, but I'll just use this. But like one of my clients was like having a lot of team challenges. So like I brought Megan in to help with something. She didn't pay extra for that, but like it just made sense to be like, hey, Megan, can you come consult on this? Like we really try to be as encompassing as we can. I mean, do I know everything? Absolutely not. Like,
yeah, 720 hours in a month. So if I'm spending 3 of those with her, that means I have 717 minus the ones where I'm sleeping. Let's just go for like, even if I have 500 hours, that's a lot of time for me to figure out my shit and not worry and not like give all of the results that I get credit to her. I got time to do my own thing, you know? I'm just not buying it.
Not trying to say that in any way, shape, or form, but I guess what I am trying to say is like, it should not be necessary that they need like 6 other courses. To be completely honest, I think like our industry is so informationed out. Like, I think most people need to keep learning from their own business, doing what's working and doing more of that. And I try to like help my clients kind of keep their eye on that prize.
That's what I'm wondering. Is Megan the team? Is the whole team just Megan and whatever lawyer she mentioned earlier?
I think this is basically like just adding on to what you were saying, but basically, how does Lacey stay on top of a biz that goes crazy big and continuing to offer that value?
How do I stay on top of it?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I don't feel like that's something, how do I want to say? I feel like it's just natural evolution, right? Like, it's not like all of a sudden it was small yesterday and it's big today and there's so much for me to catch up on. Like, I think that's sort of the value of partnership, is that like we do it together along the way. So sometimes I can look back and be like, holy shit, like the work we're doing and whatever, you know, this year is completely different than last year, but it felt so gradual that it feels quite easy to stay with. So yeah, that's just not as much of a thing for me. I don't know, like, because it's partnership, it really feels like we evolve together over time. So it never feels like I have this immense extra weight of things to figure out really quickly. It kind of feels like we got there together. Okay, I have a couple more here, Megan. Should I go to that, the submitted ones?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay. All right. So one of them is, what were the most common objections you got when you began? By the way, guys, we're going to wrap soon. I know this has been a little while. I have like a couple more questions here. If Megan has more questions, we'll do those quickly and then we'll share the links with y'all for the bonus stuff and then we'll wrap.
I did not even realize it's already 6 o'clock. It's okay. We can finish. I got time. Nothing but time.
Okay, so what were the most common objections you got when you began with this, and how did you address those on calls and through your content?
My camera's going to die, though. Let me change it.
To be honest, it was a lot easier than I thought it would be. I mostly framed it as me putting my money where my mouth was, and like, I make my money if you make money. And I feel like that messaging went a long way, because I think people were just not seeing that in the space, right? So I think like people may have to get more and more creative with how they market this if this model spreads wildly and is everywhere. It's funny, I even said this to Megan the other day. I was like, I love how many people are taking this on. I wonder if it will change our interest, which it totally might. And like, I'm super cool to pivot with that too. But like, I wonder if it will change our interest, because are people just interested because it's me, or are they interested because of this business model? And if a lot of people were doing this business model, we'd probably really have to change some of like our marketing, and that could be.
AKA, I'm getting nervous that I might lose my whole business, because if someone finds a better grifter than me, why would they hire me when they could hire them?
Fun and cool too. But yeah, so I guess
I just don't like how fake this is. Like, that's so cool. That'd be cool too. If someone came and stole my whole business, that would be totally cool. It would be cool. It's just so fun and cool. Like, no, you'd be like, holy shit, I gotta build a whole new business now. Like, just say what you're thinking.
What I'm saying is, for me, initially, I think some of the ease with it was like, everybody was like, just pay me and then you'll either get a result or you won't. And so when I kind of came out and was like, how about you pay me if you get a result? People were like, huh? Yes, like it was quite easy. It really wasn't a big thing. But again, I think we might have to play with some more differentiation if this model spreads more and more in the industry. But you do think overall people find that very attractive. The biggest objections were honestly just typically around a lack of understanding, like thinking it meant 10% forever, or thinking it meant 10% of what they were already making, or things like that. So a lot of the time people were kind of having a bit of an objection around that. It was more like they just didn't understand the model, and it had a little more to do there. And then I guess one thing I did hear one time, which I think we already talked about today, is like, why is it worth 10%? And, you know, I basically just talk about how like coaching really should be able to help you with at least 10% of your results in business, or why are you hiring a coach? Like, if you don't believe that coaching can help with at least getting 10% better results, like, why are you even hiring a coach? So, but again, like one takeaway I would say here is like, the people this is for get it relatively quickly. I would not spend an insane amount of time trying to convince someone that was like, but how do I know it's 10%? Or how do I know you deserve that, or whatever? Like, anytime that's ever come up for me, I've mostly been like, yo, if this resonates, cool. If it doesn't, like, I definitely don't want to feel like I'm convincing you, because then you paying me 10% is going to feel really bad to you. And that's, it's not happy money, like I was talking about earlier. So absolutely answer people's questions, help them see why it's so attractive. But I think at the end of the day, if there's so much pushback on like, why would you get 10%? Like that might just not be the right person for this model, because you would really never want to deal with that month over month being such a struggle, because it's not just like an agreed upon amount in minutes. It's like month over month. Is that such a thing? You don't want that. Okay, last one I have, and then Megan, if you have any more, you can tell me, and then afterwards we will wrap. If you implement a partnership model as a brand new coach, would you also need to implement a guarantee for your offer? Can the partnership model replace the guarantee you would have implemented? Or should you use both together? I think the partnership is the guarantee, honestly. Like that's how I would think about it. Like the partnership is your guarantee. I don't think you need a guarantee on top of that. I think it's fully fair to be paid for your time and your team's time and for showing up for that. So like not a thing. Okay, so really quick before, I think Megan has a few more questions for me, which I'll absolutely stay and get to, but just want to, I know this is long. So if you were here, I want to make sure you get the documents. Megan's going to put them in the chat for you to get the bonus documents, the tracking sheet and the sheet that we give to clients. Like, just thank you guys so much for coming and being here. I know I was like talking cool.
Oops. Sorry, I thought it would download.
Quite fast trying to get it through it, also for hanging with me, for asking questions, for even being interested in this model. I mean, I could probably do a whole other masterclass on like staying.
We'll look at it after.
Committed to something when everyone told you it wasn't going to work. But I heard for so long what a dumb idea this was and how it was not going to grow my business or get me the results that I wanted. And it's just cool. As much as this is for you guys to give value, this really has felt like a special culmination moment for me to be here, getting to teach on all of this so many years later, being able to be like, this works and it feels really good. So just wanted to thank you for being part of this moment with me in this kind of like very special moment in my life. So I love you all for being here and I really, really appreciate it. So I think Megan put the link in. There are a couple more questions. If you guys have to jump, more than get it, but I'll stay and answer those. Okay. Do you ever freak out that your client's potential and ambition is way too big and you won't be able to manage to hold space for that growth? Honestly, no.
Okay. Her answers are stupid. In my opinion, every time someone asks a question, she goes, I've never had to deal with that. Nope, not a problem for me. Nope. I don't need to listen to 5 more minutes of this. So we can look at the PDFs and stuff and then we'll wrap it up here. Monica says, have to go to sleep. I'll catch the remainder tomorrow. Goodbye. Good night. Thanks for coming. See you later. Bye-bye. 3 Flamingos. She has no actual idea. What is her actual thing? I don't understand her brand or her ideology. It's just a lazy, give me money and hang out online a couple times and give me more money, happy money. That's the vibe I'm getting. Honestly, we're just here for a good time and to make a bunch of money.
It sounds like a get-rich-quick scheme.
Yes, thank you. You will get rich quick. We all will.
This is her approach to business. Okay, now let's see with these. Okay, here we go. So this is how the whole thing is explained. Your coaching package also includes 10% of any new revenue generated during our time working together. So, okay, so this is what she sends to clients, I guess, when they sign up. So on the 1st of each month, we will send you an automated email that will prompt you to fill out a form where you will report your revenue from the month before. This form will ask you to specify what your total revenue is so that there is no confusion whatsoever, and it will calculate your percentage for you. It will also ask you for your currency and can make conversions fixed on the 1st of each month. If you don't have new income to report, please report 0. So it's total new revenue. So whatever was new that you generated, you would report on this form. As you submit the form, it will also let you automatically pay your revenue percentage. We ask you to report it by the 10th and email our team at support if you're delayed for any reason. You'll also receive a prompt/reminder in Basecamp with a link to the form. Note this is an automated message, so if your coaching package has just started, know that you will only begin reporting after your first month of coaching. On the next pages, we've attached an example and a list of FAQs. So before working with lazy, honestly, she does seem kind of lazy. Before working with Lacey, Susie had 2 clients on a payment plan for $1,000 a month, and each was making $2,000 a month. In Susie's first month of coaching, she didn't sign any new clients, and her total business was $2,000 from existing payments. She reports 0. In Susie's second month, she signs one new client on a $1,000 payment plan, and she still made $2,000 from her previous clients. So her revenue is $3,000, but only $1,000 was new, so she would report $1,000. Then the next month, she signs another 2 new clients, so then her revenue is now $5,000, and because she started at $2,000, her total new revenue is $3,000. In Susie's fourth month, one of her original clients' packages ended, and Susie, this is interesting, Susie did not sign any new clients, so her total revenue was $4,000, of which $1,000 had been a previous client. So she still has to report $3,000 because 3 of those 4 clients are new since they started working together. This is where it gets dicey. Because you might be playing a little bit of a switcheroo. Your income's going down, but the amount of commission you're paying is going up. Interesting. Okay, do I report sales or cash? Always report cash, not sales. Do I report the amount received before or after Stripe/PayPal fees? You'll report the gross amount. So gross is before deductions. So if a client pays $100 and PayPal takes $3, you still report $100. So we're reporting gross revenue, not net revenue. So that's shitty. What if I don't have any new revenue to report? Report 0. If I have existing clients, blah, 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 only new clients count. If I forget to report, do I have to report on USD? La, da, 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 da. On the next 2 pages, we'll show you what the form looks like. So this is the form. It shows first name, last name, email. What was your revenue this month? Currency. Please select your revenue share percentage. It will take you to the review, and then you'll see, okay, so I made $25K and I owe 10%. Your revenue share amount is $25K. Once you hit submit, you will be asked to pay via Stripe with credit card or through PayPal. If you select Stripe, you will pay like this automatically. If you select PayPal, you'll pay through paypal.me. And that's it. Interesting. Yeah, so I already knew that it was gross revenue, but it still seems like so much. Because again, let's just say I make $100K a year, my expenses are already $40,000 of that. So I only report $60,000 to the IRS or the CRA. But now I also have to give 10% of that $100K to her, meaning my total net revenue, profit, is only $50,000 out of that $100K. Then I have to pay my income tax out of that. Like, that's so much money to be giving away. 10%. For context, my business, I run a solo service-based business. My expenses usually are about 10 to 12% of my total revenue for the year. Like, I run at about 10%, I would say, on average. Meaning that I profit 90% of the money my business brings in. So it seems crazy to me to have to give another 10% to someone else just for like being my coach during that time. Okay, let me see if I can make a copy of this. So this is the revenue percentage tracking process. Oh, weird. Okay, overview. Enter in the percentage of revenue share. 10, right, oops, wrong box. Total invoice this year, $100,000. Average per month. What? Do I just put a number in here? Oh, I see. I screwed up. So January, I made 40, this much money. I see. Oh my God, guys, I'm making so much money. Holy cajoli. Molly. If this was my business, this would be really bad news because in June I only made $35. But in March I made $2 million. Holy. Okay, so if that's what I did, my average amount per month is $600,000. This tracker sucks. Just use an accounting software, guys, seriously. Or buy my bookkeeping template. I promise you it's better than this. And it's only $5. That's a joke. I don't need you to buy my things. Okay. Well, that was silly. What a waste of my time. Okay, I think that was it. I think that is her whole shtick. I'm just going to wait for this to load. I tried to look on Reddit. It didn't really seem like there was much going on there about this woman. Other than, I guess I covered her in a live stream previously, her and one of her clients, like a year ago, and someone had shared that to Reddit. So thank you to whoever did that, I guess. Three Flamingo says, this is so wrong on gross revenue. This could end up being negative. It is very, very bad. I agree. I think it's predatory. I think the whole business model is predatory because, again, the client is taking 100% of the risk and the coach gets to reap 100% of the reward. It doesn't make sense in any sense. It doesn't make any sense in any sense. In any context, I mean. No, so she does say numerous times that you only pay on income received. You don't pay on income invoiced. So I will give her credit there, but I still don't like it and I still don't agree with it. But you wouldn't end up in the negative because you're only paying the 10% on cash collected. But I mean, you could end up in the negative if you have really high expenses and you owe a lot of money in taxes. That 10% could definitely put you in the negative. Ay. Okay. I think that's going to be it for today. I am so sorry that we went on for so long. 2 hours and 20 minutes. This is a new record. I'm just kidding. We've definitely live streamed for like 3 hours before. I'll be back again next week. I have a video coming later this week. Also, again, this is me groveling. If you haven't watched the video I uploaded on Saturday, please consider watching it because it only has like 400 views. It's very discouraging, guys. I'm struggling over here. Yeah, true. Plus the $12.50. I actually forgot about that. So if my business, hold on, let's do the math here. Before I get off here, I'm just going to play a little game. Let's say, because she said she starts with some clients who make $0. If my business, let's say, only makes $5,000 a month, and I'm paying her $12.50. Hold on. I need a calculator. Okay. So I make $5,000 a month and I pay her $12.50. That means I have $37.50 left. Let's say my expenses each month are about $2,000 because, again, some of these coaches operate with like insanely low margins. So then I'm also taking out $2,000 for my expenses. And then I owe her 10% of that $5,000. My take home would be $1,250. And then I also have to pay income tax on this. So again, if my expenses were $2,000, I'm paying income tax on $3,000, which in Canada could be if I'm making $5,000 a month, that's about $60,000 a year. My income tax probably going to be about 25%. So what's 25% of 60? $15,000. So if I'm making $12.50 is what I get to take home times 12 months. That's literally all my money. I make $0. Oh my God, you guys, this is bad. This is like one of the worst we've seen yet. I genuinely don't see how someone would look at this and be like, yeah, this is great. You don't even get to keep the $12.50 because you got to pay it to the government in taxes. So now after you've paid out her for her coaching, her commission, your overhead expenses, and your taxes, you're left with $0. This business model only works, clearly, if you're making more than $60,000 a year, but she'll never tell you that. Because this is good for anyone, any business, anytime, any size. It's bad. It's bad business. It's illegal extortion. Yeah, I think that's what Monica was saying earlier, too. It definitely is skirting the line. It's skirting the line. I freaking hate it here, guys. Oh, my God.
No, how is this not a pyramid scheme?
How is this not a pyramid scheme? Someone please explain it. Thank you all so much for being here. That's going to be it for today. Again, I'll be back next week. Pablo's going away next week, so maybe I'll live stream every day for a week. That could be fun. Let me know if you're interested. Maybe we'll find a 5-day free training we can watch. I'm just kidding. I probably won't do that, but if people are interested, we can talk about it. We can discuss, okay? I'll stop yapping. Enjoy your date, night, weekend, time, morning, wherever you are, whatever you're watching this. Take care, comb your hair, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye-bye.